This boy is our protagonist Li Qiao. However, simply because he was born as an illegitimate son of the patriarch, he didn't receive even a single bit of special treatment. Yet there was one thing they didn't know: Qiao was hiding a secret. He had mastered every single martial arts manual within the clan. Yet there was one thing they didn't know: Qiao was hiding a secret. He had mastered every single martial arts manual within the clan. The story begins in North Korea, an uncharted territory. At this moment, a group of martial artists was gathered nearby, chatting amongst themselves. Within that group, a young man was looking around in a daze. Just then, an older man carrying 2 glasses of water walked over to greet him. "Hey there, young man, is this your first time taking part in this?" Hearing that, the young man hesitated slightly before reaching out to take the glass, nodding in admission. "Yes, I've entered gates and dungeons before, but this is my first time in this land, so I'm a bit nervous." Seeing this, the man let out a hearty laugh. "Haha, then you'd better brace yourself. Places like this have been abandoned for hundreds of years, so they're definitely crawling with monsters. There might even be ancient beasts for all we know." As he spoke, the man sat down next to the youth. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, the young man turned to ask, "But the leader of our expedition belongs to the prestigious Li martial arts clan, right? I heard he's the patriarch's brother, so he must be incredibly strong." At that, the man glanced over at a man sitting nearby and shook his head with a mocking smile. "You mean him? Thing is, he's just an illegitimate son. He was so weak he got kicked out of the clan." The person he was looking at was a man in his 40s with a dejected expression, looking no different from someone unemployed. This was the 9th legitimate son of the prestigious Li martial arts clan, Li Qiao. Looking at Qiao's somewhat disheveled appearance, the man continued to comment, "Not only is he incompetent, he probably lacks any persistence whatsoever. That's why at his age, he's only reached rank 7 in martial arts. How can we possibly rely on someone like that?" At the same time, a man dressed in black stepped up to Qiao and reminded him, "Expedition leader, it's time to move out." Hearing someone call him, Qiao only slightly looked up at him for a moment, then lowered his head again, whispering, "All right." Following that, the whole group quickly packed up and continued moving forward. However, for some reason, Qiao felt a sense of unease regarding this trip deep in his heart. As he walked, he thought, "The Black Merchant Group is under the command of the Li family head. They're supposed to protect me, but this doesn't look right at all. I have a bad feeling about this," Qiao silently warned himself. In his mind, he began to reminisce about his background. "I once carried hopes and dreams. The moment I realized the pressure of being part of the Li martial arts family was also the time I was chosen by a top-tier divine weapon during the selection ritual. Back then, I thought that if I never stopped learning and never stopped trying, one day I would be recognized by everyone. However, that never happened." It all started when Qiao was about 7 or 8 years old. At that time, a clan doctor pointed to an ultrasound on the wall and explained, "Look at this, I've never seen mana like this before. Mana of this nature is unsuitable for learning magic, and even if he tries to train in martial arts, it will be very difficult to stabilize. Given young Master Li Qiao's condition, reaching rank 9 would be nothing short of a miracle." Hearing this, Qiao's father only let out a heavy sigh and quietly looked out the window in total disappointment. That was the moment everything changed. When people found out about my condition, they assumed that being chosen by the divine weapon in that ritual was just a coincidence, or simply a mistake. Even so, I gave it my all. I wanted to prove him wrong. I reached rank 7 by age 25. Back then, I was truly overjoyed, even though my brothers had reached that rank when they were just kids. But that joy didn't last long, because I was expelled from the clan the moment I turned 30. If it weren't for my eldest brother, I might have been nothing more than a corpse after leaving the clan. Since then, I've been on the run. It's already been 10 years. The era of chaos has arrived. The uncharted regions expanded, and monsters evolved rapidly. My father, the man known as the pinnacle of the martial world, the patriarch of the Li martial arts clan, has passed away. Not long after the news broke in the papers, a group of people dressed in full concealment came looking for me. Seeing them, I immediately frowned and questioned them. "Black Merchant Group, how did you find me?" Across from me, the men in black didn't answer. Instead, they handed me a letter and said in a low voice, "This decree is for you." Back to Qiao's perspective, seeing that the black merchants ignored his question, he sighed and mocked himself. "Haha, they just ignored my question like that. Can I really never escape this cursed bloodline? Thinking that, he quickly read the letter and began to grasp the situation. Patriarch Li Gunseong, third brother, has become the patriarch. Then what about eldest brother? Chial wondered internally. But before he could think further, the men opposite him continued, "We meet in 1 hour." With that, they turned and left. Seeing this, Chial gripped the letter tight in his hand and hurriedly asked, "Wait, what happened to eldest brother?" The black merchants didn't answer, remaining silent. Seeing this, Chial continued, "I haven't even touched a sword in 10 years, so why are you making me investigate the uncharted region?" Hearing this, one of the men in black seemed to get a bit angry. He glared back at Chial and said, "So you're looking to refuse this?" As he spoke, he lightly gripped the hilt of the sword at his hip. This made Chial shiver, realizing that if he refused without a valid reason, death was the only path. So with no other choice, Chial had to accept his request. "It's not like that, I'll do it." Hearing the answer, the black merchants were satisfied and immediately vanished before Chial like a gust of wind. Once they were gone, Chial angrily crumpled the paper and gritted his teeth. Those bastards. Back to the present, Chial's group, after moving through the forest for a while, suddenly witnessed a massive, decaying building before them. This left the young man in awe. An abandoned building? This place is actually pretty well preserved. Beside him, the man in black suggested, "Let's head inside." Just like that, the whole group drew their weapons, gripped them tight, and slowly entered the house. As they walked, they scanned their surroundings, and the sight before them made their skin crawl and their hair stand on end. At this point, the inside of the house was piled high with bones, both human and monster. "What the hell is this? Are these ancient monster remains?" someone shouted. But before they could find an answer, one of the men in black barked, "Commence the operation!" The moment the order was given, 2 men in black on either side lunged forward, leaving the young man with no time to even understand what was happening before his head was severed. Everything happened so fast, leaving the rest of the martial artists unable to react in time as they screamed, "What do you think you're doing?" The response to this question was the cold voice of an assassin. "You all knew you were dead from the start. You should feel honored to be sacrificed for the sake of the clan." He spoke as he lunged with his weapon to attack the older man. However, there was one thing he didn't expect. Before he could take down the person in front of him, a sword pierced through his chest from behind. And the one who struck was none other than Chial. He coldly asked them, "Who is the one behind this?" In front of him, the assassin replied in a calm voice, as if he felt no pain. "The patriarch is the one behind this. We were ordered to bring you here. Provided you didn't resist, of course." As he spoke, he reached out and crushed the sword that was skewering him. Following that, the large wound on his chest began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. This left Chial unable to believe his eyes. However, taking this chance, the older martial artist immediately circled behind the man for a sneak attack. Unfortunately, his martial arts level was a bit too low. Before his attack could even land, the assassin casually swung a sword backwards, splitting the man's body in two. Fresh blood began to spray everywhere, filling the air with a metallic stench. After doing this, the assassin glanced at Chial with a mocking look. "How pathetic. I thought you'd be much stronger than this, especially since half of your blood still belongs to the Li martial arts family." With that said, he lunged forward like a lightning bolt, delivering a kick straight to Chial's chest, causing him to cough up a large amount of blood, and fly backward like a cannonball. His body smashed through countless walls and bones before he finally came to a stop. Yet, in the midst of such extreme danger, for some reason, Chial's mind remained incredibly calm. He reminded himself, "I can't die like this. I need a weapon." Thinking this, Chial scanned his surrounding. Very quickly, he spotted a longsword embedded in the spine of a giant monster that had died ages ago. Over there, that sword was strong enough to kill a massive monster like this. "If I use it, I'll have a chance. Please work." Thinking that, without a second of hesitation, Chial gripped the sword and pulled it out. However, for some reason, as the sword was drawn, it slowly dissolved into a cloud of black smoke. Seeing this, Chial's eyes turned hollow as he muttered like a soulless man, "Why?" At the same time, the assassin's voice rang out right behind Chial's ear. "I can't imagine that someone from the Li family could be this pathetic. At the very least, let me send you off as a member of the Li name." With that, he swung the sword in his hand, creating a streak of red light that slashed across Chial's body. The protagonist's entire body lost all strength and fell straight forward. In his heart, only one resentful thought remained: the heavens are truly too cruel. am I really going to die like this? My whole life has been nothing but running away, tasting countless failures, and this is the end. If I had the chance to live again, then I would. At that thought, Chiol's vision turned pitch black. However, his consciousness didn't fade completely. A streak of light began to appear within the darkness. Then a familiar voice rang out, "Is this Yujung's child? What happened to Yujung?" Beside him, a man dressed like a butler replied, "When we found her, she had." His voice trailed off, hesitant. Back to Chiol's perspective, the familiar voice and face filled him with nostalgia. This voice, is it father? But didn't he pass away? Wait, he looks so young, and not just him, even Butler Choi looks like that too. Father, Butler. Chiol thought as he reached his hand forward. However, what he saw was an unusually small pair of hands. The reason was simple. At this moment, he was in the state of a newborn baby. Staring at his tiny hands, Chiol even wiggled them a few times to see if his eyes were playing tricks on him, wondering to himself, "What happened? I was supposed to be dead. Is this the afterlife, or just a memory?" Unaware of the thoughts racing through his son's head, his father, Lee Tishan, spoke up to give instructions to the butler. "Young will be a fitting name for him for now. Just like the other children, arrange for a maid and a few members of the Shadow Sword Squad to protect him." He continued, "and have him participate in the sword selection ceremony along with the 8th young lady." His words left the butler stunned, causing him to ask for clarification. "Right away, sir. But he isn't ready yet? Furthermore, the 8th young lady is several months older than him, sir." The butler's words caused Tishan to pause and reflect for a moment. However, he eventually shook his head and said, "It doesn't matter, I'm leaving now." Having said that, he glanced at Chiol, which made the boy flinch, before quickly turning to leave the room. Only when he had completely gone did Chiol let out a sigh of relief, thinking, "Phew, that was definitely father. I haven't seen him in a long time, but that pressure he gives off is exactly the same as before. So what is this all about? This feeling is far too real to be just a memory." In that conversation just now, that event actually took place. Even though I don't want to believe it, if this is the truth, then have I really regressed back to this damn point in time? The more he thought about it, the more our protagonist felt the situation was somewhat absurd. Time passed quickly. Several months after Chiol's regression, the big day for the prestigious Lee martial arts clan arrived. The sword selection ceremony. The clan's descendants would reveal their talent through the weapons that chose them. In the past, his father had been chosen by dozens of swords, becoming the strongest swordsman of his generation. Meanwhile, his older brother was chosen by a sword, a scroll, and a staff, earning worldwide fame for his mastery of both swordsmanship and magic. Now, it was his turn. Chiol was currently dressed in extremely luxurious clothes, though they made him feel quite uncomfortable. However, a maid looking at his current appearance smiled broadly and praised him. "Oh my, the young master looks so handsome today. Even in an unfamiliar place, he hasn't cried at all. He's so mature." This girl was Chiol's maid, Moongawa. She reached out to pick Chiol up and continued, "I'm certain the young master will achieve great results. Your future is sure to be bright." On his end, Chiol looked into her face and instinctively let out a soft smile. In his eyes, a flicker of memory from his past life appeared. Maid Gawa was like a mother to him, but due to his brother's jealousy, she had been expelled. She was the only one who cried for his loneliness and always stayed by his side. "But this time, I won't let that happen again. I will protect her at all costs." Thinking this, he reached out his tiny hands to touch Gawa's face. This action surprised her a bit, but she held him even tighter. Then, right at that moment, someone walked over and reminded them both, "Young Master Young, everything is ready, sir." Hearing this, Gawa turned to Chiol and said, "Well then, shall we head out now?" Elsewhere, Butler Choi appeared behind Tishan and reminded him, "Everything has been prepared." In response, Patriarch Tishan turned his head and nodded, "Very well." Just like that, the entire group quickly moved to a certain area, one that looked just like an arena. However, at this time, countless weapons were standing upright on the stage, while many guests had gathered from all directions to watch the ceremony. They looked toward Chiol and whispered, "Is that the child, the bastard child brought in from the outside?" At another corner of the stands, important clan members were also present. This young, beautiful lady was the clan's matriarch. Her name was Baekhyudian. The long-haired man beside her was General Manager Lee Yihang. Next was the eldest son of the clan, Lee Gunseong. And finally, the third son of the clan, Lee Myeonjung. While everyone was still silently observing and judging Chiol, Myeonjung suddenly spoke up. He's far too small. Don't you remember us participating in this ceremony at that age, right, Gunseong? He spoke while glancing at his brother sitting beside him. To this, Gunseong coldly replied, "Yeah, I suppose so." No idea where he even dropped in from. He spoke with an expressionless face, though he felt a bit of curiosity deep down. The scene shifted to the arena. Tishin announced in a loud voice, "The weapon selection ceremony begins. Bring HWA out here." Hearing this, a girl hurriedly carried a baby girl forward. This little girl was named Lee HWA, the 8th child of the clan. Tishin sat the little girl against a chair, then took a dagger out of his coat pocket and made a small cut on her tiny fingertip. A few drops of blood immediately flowed out, causing the little girl to burst into tears. However, the strange thing was, the moment those drops of blood fell, they emitted a blue light that headed straight toward the weapons in the distance. A silver-white sword among the weapons suddenly lit up. Seeing this, the observers were amazed. "Wow, that's the prestigious Saintrank weapon, the Fang Sword, a true masterpiece. It hasn't responded to anyone for generations." Ignoring the chatter, Tishin immediately reached toward the sword, using his power to draw it into his hand. Once he held the sword firmly, Tishin gently hugged his young daughter and said, "From now on, the Fang Sword belongs to HWA." Hearing this, several middle-aged ladies nearby offered their congratulations. "Congratulations, young lady, another genius is born into the clan. Today is truly a momentous day." Receiving the praise, the clan's matriarch, Lady Baekhyun, smiled happily and softly offered her thanks. However, her expression immediately darkened when she heard Tishin continue. "And next, young ceremony will begin." The moment he finished speaking, the crowd's enthusiasm seemed to vanish. Instead, they began to doubt, whispering to one another, "Is that the bastard from the outside? Tusk, why let someone like that participate in the ceremony?" Ignoring the gossip, Tishin sat Chial against a rock and took the dagger to draw blood from his fingertip, just as he had done with HWA earlier. However, because he had the mind of an adult, Chial didn't cry like his older sister. This made Tishin somewhat pleased as he softly said, "I am very proud of you." With that, he patted Chial's head in praise. Yet Chial felt a bit anxious. He thought to himself, "So the time has come. In my past life I was chosen by the Sword of Echoing Azure, a heaven-rank sword." With that thought, Chial reached out his hand, letting the drops of blood fall. The scene shifted to the stands. General Manager Yihang looked at Lady Baekhyun's cold face and began to think. Judging by her expression, it seemed the great sister-in-law wasn't happy at all. It was understandable, given that he was the hidden bloodline of the eldest brother. That child truly has a cruel fate. I'm afraid it won't be easy for someone with the title of an illegitimate son to survive in the Lee clan. Perhaps it's because of those conservative old men stuck in their pureblood obsessions that things have turned out this way. Thinking of this, General Manager Yihang let out a regretful sigh. At the same time, as if reading his mind, an old man behind him stroked his beard and said with a smile, "It seems the General Manager has quite an interest in an illegitimate son." As he spoke, he glanced at Yihang with a look full of hidden meaning. This old man was the great elder of the Lee clan. Hearing his words, Yihang gave him a cold glance and replied, "Greetings, great elder." With that, General Manager Yihang felt a sense of caution toward this cunning old man. He thought to himself, "This is a man who never reveals his true thoughts. I can't afford to be careless in front of him." Unaware of Yihang's thoughts, the old man, Chial Jun, continued cheerfully, "Is that the child the patriarch brought in from the outside?" Yihang replied without even looking at him, "That's correct. I heard the Spirit Sword Squad found and protected him." Chial Jun had known about this for a long time, yet he still asked the question. How puzzling. I can't fathom the patriarch's thoughts. How can an illegitimate son born to who knows whom and in what manner participate in the Iron Selection Ceremony? The Iron Selection Ceremony holds no meaning for an illegitimate son. That was clearly proven by the General Manager's own experience, wasn't it? The old man's words were laced with sarcasm, causing Yihang's face to stiffen. His hands clenched so hard they shook as he questioned, "What did you just say?" Hearing this, the old man Chial Jun hurriedly corrected himself, though his malicious tone didn't fade in the slightest. "Oh, forgive my rudeness. It's just that the story of the General Manager, someone from the outside who wasn't chosen by any weapon in his own ceremony, is simply too famous. An illegitimate son is just an illegitimate son after all. So it's best for him to know his place. With that, he let out a mocking laugh. By this point, even the Buddha would have felt some anger. How could Yi Hung stay silent after being insulted like that? He gritted his teeth and snapped, "Enough! I will not tolerate such excessive insults any longer." Before the words could fully leave his mouth, a brilliant light suddenly flashed in the distance, leaving both Yi Hung and Qiao Jun dazed. Yi Hung was so shocked he even stood up from his chair, widening his eyes to get a better look. Beside him, the old man Qiao Jun looked as confused as if he had just lost all his money. "What is this? How can this be happening?" he muttered. Meanwhile, General Manager Yi Hung was overcome with joy. He couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, even seeing it with my own eyes I feel like I'm dreaming." At that moment, according to their gaze, all the weapons on the arena floor began to glow simultaneously, emitting a light bright enough to dazzle anyone. Even masterpiece weapons like the famous Blood Spirit Spear or the Iron Melt Saber, and even holy artifacts like the Saint Sword Ma or the Saint Thunder Long all responded to Qiao, accepting the young boy as their next master. This caused the entire arena to suddenly fall silent in shock. Just seconds later, countless frantic shouts began to ring out, "How is this possible? This is insane!" Not just the ceremony weapons, but even weapons that already have masters are responding. On his end, the sword belonging to the eldest son, Myeongjung, also lit up. It shook uncontrollably in response to Qiao. This left Yi Hung with only a dazed smile. "Haha, how can this be? Gunseong, do you believe what you're seeing? It seems our ninth brother possesses a talent far beyond anything we imagined." In response, Gunseong remained as cold as ever and admitted, "It would appear so." Elsewhere, the guests who had come to watch the ceremony continued to chatter excitedly. "Doesn't something seem off? A result like this shouldn't be possible for an illegitimate son, but damn it, there's no way the Iron Selection ceremony could make a mistake." Returning to Patriarch Tishan's perspective amidst all the chatter, he shouted out, "Silence! According to clan rules, all weapons that have chosen young must belong to him. However, handling this matter simply may not be easy. Therefore, I wish to hear everyone's opinion." In response to his words, General Manager Yi Hung raised his hand to share his thoughts. "I have a proposal. Regardless of the clan rules, I believe granting all these weapons would go against the true meaning of the Iron Selection ceremony. The selection ceremony is a tradition that must be maintained for future generations. Therefore, how about letting the ninth young master choose just one sword from among them? How does that sound, sir?" To Patriarch Tishan, this felt like an offer he couldn't refuse, so without much thought, he immediately agreed. "Not bad, that idea will be approved." With that, he snapped his fingers, commanding the weapons that already had masters to fly back toward the arena. He then used his energy to gently guide Qiao's body as he sat in front, saying softly, "Now, my son, choose the one you desire." From Qiao's perspective, he saw all the weapons glowing brilliantly before him, leaving him dazed. He wondered to himself why everything was different compared to before his regression. But either way, this was clearly a great opportunity for him. "So I will take advantage of this entire situation." Thinking this, Qiao crawled forward quickly. He crawled right past the sword carrying the bloodline of the true dragon Braha without any intention of stopping. Even weapons with destructive yet incredibly powerful strength, such as the Saint's Spear White View forged by combining a part of a saint's body to slay super-powerful beasts, failed to catch his attention. Additionally, there was the Valheen Staff, crafted from a branch of the World Tree where spirits reside, and the Spirit Desert Sword, forged when the moon, sun, and stars aligned. All of them were great weapons waiting for Qiao to choose them. However, he didn't need to hesitate for long. Qiao reached out to touch a certain sword as if he had an intended target from the start. Behind him, Patriarch Tishan saw the sword he chose and his eyes couldn't hide his surprise. That sword was the one the Li clan's first ancestor had found in the uncharted wilderness. For generations, not a single person had been able to unlock its hidden power. The sword had simply sat quietly in the darkness, covered in the dust of time. Its name was Dark Knight. Based on its known capabilities, the sword didn't qualify to be ranked as a heaven rank weapon. However, because of its connection to the clan's first ancestor, it had always been kept alongside the heaven rank weapons. To this day, no predecessor had ever been chosen by it. Was this merely a meaningless choice by a newborn baby? Or was it a great new destiny being laid out? Tishan whispered, his voice so low that only he could hear it. Then, after Qiao had chosen the sword for himself, he pulled both the boy and the sword toward him and announced, Li Young has chosen Dark Knight. With that, the ceremony is officially concluded. At this moment, up in the stands, the clan's matriarch Baekhyun looked at Cheol choosing that sword, and a trace of killing intent appeared in her eyes that made others shiver. Illegitimate son Li Young, another troublesome person, has entered the clan. If he becomes an obstacle, then there's no choice but to eliminate him. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 9 years had passed. Our protagonist, Cheol, was now 9 years old. Inside a certain private courtyard, he spoke in a loud voice. "Nanny, I'm heading out for afternoon training." Hearing this, Gawa hurriedly ran after him. "Oh, let me walk you a part of the way." Just like that, the two walked together. During this, Cheol felt a bit awkward and scratched his cheek. "I can go on my own," Gawa responded with a question. "But young master, all the other training areas are empty. Why do you insist on choosing the first area? That place is so old, isn't it?" To this question, Cheol didn't explain much, simply offering a light smile and saying calmly, "Someone is waiting for me there." Cheol's explanation left Gawa stunned as she muttered, "Someone is waiting." Then, right at that moment, a shout suddenly rang out, catching both of their attention. "That's not how it's done." Gawa stopped, her eyes scanning to one side in surprise. "Oh, it seems someone is in the 7th area." Inside the 7th training area, a little girl was working hard at her sword practice while listening to the teachings of a certain master. "Gripping the sword too tightly will injure your hand. Now, one more vertical slash." "Yes, sir," the little girl shouted in response. This little girl was Li Hwa, the 8th young lady of the Li clan who had participated in the sword selection ceremony with Cheol as a baby. Outside, Cheol saw this and shrugged, saying, "So it's the 8th young lady." Behind him, the maid Gawa hurriedly reminded him, "You should call her elder sister, young master. If someone hears you, it'll be a huge problem." Her voice was full of worry. While Cheol found it amusing and thought, "We're only 5 months apart, what elder sister?" Ignoring the two of them, the instructor's shouting continued inside the training hall. "You must always swing the sword as if it were an extension of your own body. Again, you must handle the sword with care to avoid injury." Once more. The constant reminders made Hwa's head ache, and she got so angry she shook, throwing her sword aside. "Honestly, master, why do you keep nagging? What does it matter how I hold the sword? As long as I have a firm grip, it's fine." Opposite her, the master saw her frustration and quickly reached out a hand to calm her. "Young lady, all of this is for your sake. First, calm down and try again. You'll surely do better this time." He spoke while picking up the sword and handing it back to Hwa. Outside, looking at the awkward sight of an adult dealing with a 9-year-old like that, Cheol asked curiously, "Who is that person struggling over there?" Hearing the question, the maid Gawa was a bit surprised but quickly replied, "Ah, that is Baekhyun, the captain of the Black Cinnabar Squad." Hearing this, Cheol couldn't hide the surprise in his eyes. "A captain. Giving a 9-year-old child a master like that is a bit much." Behind him, Gawa sensed Cheol's mood was a bit unsettled, thinking he felt neglected since he had no one to teach him, so she tried to comfort him. "A good master will surely appear and recognize your talents soon, young master. It's my fault for being incompetent and not serving you properly." Young lady Hwa has been raised on baby food mixed with medicinal herbs since she was small. As she reached this point, Gawa's eyes began to well up with tears. Cheol, hearing this, gave her a slightly annoyed reminder. "Honestly, not this again, Nanny. I have so much to be grateful to you for. I don't need people like that. They only come here for the Li clan's status anyway. Besides, I already have excellent masters," Cheol said confidently. Time passed quickly. The scene shifted to the first training area reserved for the Li clan. This place was a symbol of the Li clan's long history. Various weapons and training dummies were arranged around the area. However, it was somewhat old and seemed to be largely untouched. For Cheol, upon entering this training area, he didn't waste time looking at the equipment around him. Currently, it served more as a symbol than an actual martial arts field. Even so, he had only one reason for coming here. Because this place held weapons even more ancient than any armory in the other training fields. Thinking this, Cheol opened the warehouse door. Inside were countless swords leaning against the walls. They were extremely old, rusted, and some had numerous cracks on their blades. However, Cheol didn't care about that. He glanced at a longsword not far away and walked toward it. "Oh, found it. I'll try using this one today." With that, he took the sword to the training area. As he walked, he thought, Since 9 years ago, when he returned to his second life, an extraordinary change had occurred within him. Among them, the most incredible change was, he had gained the ability to read the memories hidden within weapons. At this moment, as Chial's hand gripped the famous sword and he concentrated his mind, several unfamiliar images suddenly appeared in his head. He was standing in a neat line with a group of people holding swords, accompanied by the instructions of an unknown person. Train your foundations to be solid. Whether it is high-level or low-level swordsmanship, the foundation is the same. From top to bottom, from left to right, the memory becomes clearer like an unshakable pillar. Engrave that foundation into your swords. From top to bottom, from left to right, the memory became clearer like an unshakable pillar. Engrave that foundation into your swords. As this voice rang out, Chial also began to slowly move his body. He told himself, this is the memory deeply engraved within this weapon. The more ancient and exquisite a weapon was, or the longer and more dearly it was used by its owner, the more clearly the memories of the past would emerge. With a powerful swing from above to below, Chial caused a loud explosion. Shockwaves began to release outward, sending dust and dirt flying everywhere. This was the first form of the 7-star sword style, Red Wind. Looking at the results of this attack, Chial couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. So, the 7-star sword is finally complete. Over the past 2 years, I've read almost every memory from the weapons inside this training hall. Then, right at that moment, a round of appreciative applause suddenly rang out from behind him. That was spectacular. It's been a long time since I've seen such a perfect 7-star sword technique. Hearing the familiar voice, Chial turned around and saw that the person who had arrived was none other than the general manager, Yihang. A few bits of information about the man flashed through his mind. Li Yihang, general manager of the Li clan, a 4th-rank martial artist. Despite being born an illegitimate son, his sheer strength earned him recognition and his current position. From his past life until now, he was the only person in the clan who truly cared for him. Thinking of this, Chial quickly bowed. Greetings, great uncle. Hearing this, Yihang happily patted his head and praised him. Haha, you can just call me uncle. You never miss a day of training, truly commendable. Every time I leave for work and return, I see your silhouette here. Being treated differently from your brothers must be very difficult. But even so, I hope you can stand firm and overcome it all. His voice was filled with affection. As for Chial, he had already experienced this kind of discrimination once before, so he didn't feel inferior at all. I'm fine, uncle. No matter what, I carry the blood of the Li clan. The sword is the proof. That is the meaning our family name carries, and that is what I was taught. Therefore, I will prove myself through my own strength. Chial spoke with a radiant expression. This left Yihang dazed for a second. Then he let out a regretful sigh. Sigh, why was a child like this born as an illegitimate son? He muttered to himself, then cleared his throat and said, come to think of it, it won't be long before you reach the age for your naming ceremony. Although it's a bit late. Before that, I want to become your master. Well, does that make you happy? He pointed at himself as he spoke. Unfortunately for the older man, he was being a bit delusional because Chial awkwardly declined. I am grateful for the offer, but I cannot accept it. Across from him, Yihang felt like he'd been struck by lightning. He hurriedly asked, what? Why? Are you not satisfied with me being your master? To answer the question, Chial held up both hands to reassure him. It's not like that. One cannot serve a master before the naming ceremony. That is the rule, and I don't want to put you in a difficult position, uncle. Chial's words made Yihang feel indignant on his behalf. But your brothers openly break that rule, training under famous masters and being nurtured with all sorts of spiritual elixirs. Yihang spoke while firmly grasping Chial's shoulders. However, Chial silently shook his head in refusal. Just because it's a rule no one follows doesn't mean I shouldn't uphold it. And as I said before, I want to prove myself through my own power. To Yihang, Chial's excessive maturity made him feel a bit suspicious. This child, is he really only 9 years old? These eyes, it's like I'm looking at my eldest brother. Thinking that and seeing Chial's resolve, Yihang didn't push further. It seems you have no intention of letting go of this stubbornness, do you? Just like your father, truly a stubborn man to the end, what a handful. He sighed and continued, then is there nothing your uncle can do to help? If I do nothing for you, I won't be able to rest easy. Is there anything else you need? Yihang said with a smile, making Chial's eyes light up. Thank you, uncle, I'll take you up on that offer then. Chial muttered a quiet thanks in his heart, then scratched his head and made his request. Actually, there is something I'd like to ask of you. I want to visit the basement of the secret treasury. Time passed quickly. In response to his nephew's request, Yi-hung put him in a car and drove to the place known as the secret storehouse. Outside, two security guards held out their hands to stop the vehicle, and said in a stern voice, "Please stop, forgive our rudeness, please verify your identity and state the purpose of your visit." Hearing this, Yi-hung rolled down the car window and replied, "I am General Manager Lee Yi-hung, here for a routine inspection." With that, he presented his ID for the guard to verify, then pointed toward Chial in the back seat. "Accompanying me is Lee Young, the youngest son of the Lee clan. I'm bringing him along for a tour." Seeing this, the guard took a quick look and then stepped aside to invite them in. "Identity confirmed, please proceed." Just like that, after a brief formality, Yi-hung's car continued into the facility. As for Chial, he had visited this place early in his past life. However, now he had to act a bit so as not to arouse suspicion. He told himself, "This is when I need to react like a total child." With this thought in mind, Chial's eyes began to sparkle as he peered outside. "Wow, so this is the secret treasury." Looking at his reaction, Uncle Yi-hung fell for it completely and laughed. "Are you that excited?" Chial answered with a very thrilled expression. "Of course, the secret treasury is where the clan's most precious treasures are kept." Saying this, Chial wasn't acting at all. He clenched his fists in excitement. The thing he was searching for was also located inside. Legendary weapons, ancient artifacts that people didn't even know truly existed. Those who searched for such extraordinary things usually received one answer. Everything can be found within the secret treasury of the Lee clan. Inside the hexagonal building, the modern architecture was so polished one could see their reflection everywhere. On the walls, the Lee clan crest, the symbol of two crossed swords, could be seen throughout. On his end, Uncle Yi-hung pressed a button on the elevator and said, "The basement of the secret treasury is where weapons that have been sealed for various reasons are kept." Hearing this, Chial's eyes shone as he asked, "Does that include monster weapons that devoured their own masters?" Yi-hung answered with a nod. The older man even teased his nephew. "That's right, you certainly know your stuff. If you carelessly touch those weapons, both your body and mind will be devoured by them." He spoke with a peculiar smile, causing Chial's shoulders to shudder as if in fear. This made Yi-hung burst into a happy laugh. "What's wrong? Are you scared?" Chial replied with a brave face. "Not at all." Next, the elevator doors opened. However, Yi-hung had no intention of stepping in and simply turned to give Chial instructions. "Don't worry, you won't be able to enter those dangerous places anyway. I have some business to attend to upstairs, so take your time looking around." "Yes, thank you, Uncle." Chial nodded and quickly stepped into the elevator. As soon as the elevator doors closed, his innocent, youthful demeanor completely vanished. He let out a heavy breath from having to act for so long. Pretending to be an innocent child really wasn't easy. Waiting until the elevator doors opened. Before Chial was a gleaming armory filled with countless types of weapons. This was the basement of the secret treasury, also known as the weapon graveyard, a place where numerous weapons and artifacts were sealed. The reason he went to all this trouble to come here was for one thing, to find a specific weapon. It was called Infinite. Originally taking the form of a dagger, when mana was infused into it, Infinite could freely change its length, shape, weight, and even its properties. Before his regression, Lee Gunseong was the one who found Infinite inside the secret treasury. Thanks to the infinite transformations and overwhelming flexibility of that sword, he earned the title Myriad Change. Because of that title, it wasn't the eldest brother, the former frontrunner for the patriarch position, but the third brother, Gunseong, who became the patriarch. And then he found me, the one hiding in the shadows, and ruthlessly eliminated. This was all he knew up to this point. To prevent that tragedy from repeating, there was something he had to do. Though it would take some time, he had no choice but to check everything one by one. This time, he had to claim Infinite before Gunseong did. As Chial spoke, wisps of black smoke began to pour from the palm of his hand. Following that, he began to scour every corner of the armory. He tried touching each weapon one by one. However, he still hadn't found the Infinite blade. "This isn't it either." An hour had already passed. He had checked every dagger that seemed like a fit, but there was still no sign of Infinite. Chial let out a dejected sigh, but he quickly regained his spirit. Chial scanned his surroundings and thought, "No, it must be here. I haven't checked everything yet. Let's try checking that display cabinet over there." As he moved, Chial's body bumped into a nearby table, causing a rusty dagger to fall to the floor. The sound it made upon impact was not quiet at all. As for Chial, looking at the peculiar shape of this dagger, he felt curious. So much rust built up, how could it even get to this state? As he spoke, Chial reached out toward the blade. However, right at that moment, the black smoke from his palm emerged and enveloped the dagger. The black smoke was thicker and denser than ever before, even covering Chial's entire body, causing him to feel a bit of panic. "What's happening? What is this all of a sudden?" Chial cried out softly before his entire vision was obscured by the black smoke. By the time Chial regained his senses, he found himself on some strange battlefield. Around him were piles of corpses stacked high as mountains. "Where am I? Could this be the memory hidden inside this rusty dagger?" This feeling is completely different from the memories I've read in other weapons. It's as if I'm truly present in this place. The sensation is incredibly vivid. Thinking this, Chial looked left and right. Then, suddenly, he felt a chilling sensation that made his hair stand on end. "This isn't good." Chial immediately spun around and discovered a massive figure staring intently at him from behind. At that moment, a thought flashed through Chial's mind, an aura so terrifying it makes even nature tremble. The apocalypse monster that once rose from the blue hole in ancient times, devouring countless civilizations. Before Chial was a gargantuan monster, its body as large as a mountain with an extremely bizarre shape and countless tentacles sprouting from it. It was difficult to describe the creature's form specifically. Upon facing it, Chial's body shook uncontrollably. His instincts were screaming at him to run away. "I'm going to die, I'll definitely die, there's no way to win against that thing, I have to run now," Chial thought as he slowly backed away. However, he then tripped over an obstacle and slumped to the ground. At the same time, the sound of footsteps began to echo from behind Chial. It was a strange figure carrying a long sword, slowly walking toward the giant monster. This left Chial in shock. Since when was this person behind me? He wondered, yet right then the stranger gathered his strength and lunged forward like an arrow. He leapt high into the air to do battle with the giant monster. With a world-shaking shout, he delivered a single sword strike to pierce through the enemy. In the blink of an eye, the attack left a trail of light on the monster's body. And just a second later, its body exploded into countless fragments, creating a rain of blood across the sky. Meanwhile, Chial was still dazed, not yet understanding what had just happened. He spoke blankly. "Unbelievable. It took only one strike to finish it." "That's right, where is that person now?" Thinking this, Chial searched for the figure. And just then, the martial artist in front suddenly turned his head, stared at Chial, and asked in a cold voice, "Who are you?" The question made Chial's body tremble. He thought to himself, "He can see me." In front of him, the nameless martial artist continued, "Why am I here? Out of mercy, I shall send you on your way without pain." With that, he raised his sword high above his head and slashed down toward Chial. At that exact moment, he snapped awake, escaping the vision. Chial began to gasp for air, sweat pouring down his face, as the rusty dagger lay on the ground right in front of him. What was that? What was that scene? The crushing pressure still lingers over my body. It was as if it were real, Chial thought in confusion. But before he could find an answer, the dagger beside him began to shake uncontrollably. From the blade, wisps of light orange smoke began to spread, and in an instant its appearance completely changed. Seeing this, Chial rushed over and picked up the sword to examine it. Could this be? There's no mistake. I will become the master of the myriad weapons. Thinking this, Chial lightly cut his fingertip with a knife to let a few drops of blood fall onto the blade. Immediately, the dagger glowed with a soft blue light, as if accepting Chial as its master. Unable to contain his excitement, he began to swing the sword. With each swing, the shape of the weapon continuously changed. From a dagger, it quickly elongated into a long sword. With one more swing, it transformed into a spear. Time passed quickly, and Chial was now practicing as usual. However, he was a bit dejected. Phew, another failure. A week had passed since he obtained Infinite, the infinite blade he had taken from the underground armory that day. Currently, he was keeping it in the form of a ring to avoid detection. But what happened that day? What was it exactly? That's right, that man, his sword strike. It was like a reminder that I'm still not worthy. The black aura showed me that technique and its name. Never mind the power, just the movements of that man exuded an elegant beauty. However, no matter how hard I try to mimic it, I still can't replicate it. But even so, I don't feel rushed. In my past life, I was just a person looked down upon. I wasn't even taught the clan's basic martial arts. It's just one technique, but this is the first time I've come into contact with a high-level martial art. I can do this. I remember very clearly how that person moved in the memory, clearer than anyone else. At this thought, Chial's face suddenly went blank as he realized something. Wait, that man, I am not an adult like him. I'm only a 9-year-old child. If I try to perfectly mimic the movements of an adult, of course I won't be able to exert full power. I have to accept this body, move slowly and naturally, and swing the sword in a way that suits me. With that thought, Chial slowly closed his eyes. He relaxed his body, raised the sword above his head, then suddenly tightened his grip and swung the blade down with all his might. The moment the tip of the sword touched the ground, a booming sound echoed. The ground cracked into pieces and stone debris flew everywhere like bullets. Chial looked at his results with satisfaction. Good, it seems I've caught the feeling. Now it's just a matter of applying mana. At this point, Chial's face turned contemplative. No matter how many times I try to apply it in the memory, it feels like a vital part is missing. I can't replicate it. Why? All I can do is keep trying. Alright, let's start again. Chial sighed and continued practicing. However, just as he pulled the sword back, his blade was gripped tightly by the hand of a young woman. She asked softly, "Hey kid, where did you learn that technique?" To Chial, the appearance of this woman made him feel a bit curious. That jet black hair and brown eyes, this person carries the blood of the Li clan. Thinking this, Chial asked directly, "Who are you?" On the other side, the young woman's eyes showed a hint of surprise. "Huh, you don't know me?" "Ah, I suppose that makes sense, You might not know me, I don't show my face very often." She then asked cheerfully, "So, what's your name?" Seeing her friendly attitude, Chial answered hesitantly, "I'm Young." As soon as she heard the name, the young woman suddenly grabbed Chial's hand and shook him like a doll. "Young, your name is so special. That's right, I'm Li Jionghwa. It's so nice to meet you." From this introduction, Chial quickly realized who she was. This is Aunt Li Jionghwa. According to Yihang, she's a bit different from everyone else, so grandfather couldn't accept it. My uncle told me that story in my past life. But more than that, hasn't she considered her ridiculous strength while playing with her nephew like this? Chial thought as he glared at Jionghwa without saying anything. Jionghwa simply remarked casually, "Your body is a bit weak, isn't it?" With that, she slowly approached Chial and got straight to the main point. "So, little one, where did you learn that technique?" Chial wasn't foolish enough to explain the matter. Instead, he asked back, "Why do you ask?" Jionghwa laughed and answered in a boastful tone, "That's ancient martial arts. Your aunt here absolutely loves ancient martial arts. That was the era when monsters ran rampant, right?" With that, she pulled an old book from her sleeve and handed it to Chial. "So, this is a gift for you." "A gift?" Chial asked curiously. Jionghwa nodded and urged, "Yes, open it up and see." Seeing this, Chial didn't hesitate. He quickly flipped through each page, skimming the contents. The handwriting is so bad it's hard to read. But is this magic? It's not just magic, it records martial arts as well. The level is quite high, to the point where I don't understand it at all. Perhaps the rumors about her are incorrect. Thinking this, Chial hesitantly asked, "This is?" Beside him, Jionghwa knew her nephew didn't understand, so she stepped closer and explained, These are ancient magics based on exposed mana. In the past, magic could only be used through the exposed mana in the body without needing a mana core, whereas modern magic relies on storing mana in the heart. But can ancient magic be considered obsolete? In some ways, the mana control techniques of that time were even superior to those of today. At this point, Jionghwa pointed to the book in his hand. "That's why I'm also researching amplification and transformation techniques, but the remaining records are too few." Meanwhile, Chial felt a surge of great interest in the subject. "This is a perspective I never considered. Infinite's magic." Thinking this, he hurriedly spoke up, "Aunt, please wait a moment." With that, Chial ran off, leaving Jionghwa confused about what was happening. Next, Chial produced a sword from somewhere, gripped it with both hands, closed his eyes, and concentrated on controlling the energy in his heart. Mana from his mana core spread through his body, but instead of absorbing the mana back into the core, wait, that nameless martial artist used exposed mana the way that man in the memory used mana, which I couldn't understand. Now I can do it. With that thought, a gleam appeared in Chial's eyes. He tightened his grip on the sword and swung it down with all his might. A large slash appeared on the ground and stone debris flew everywhere. Seeing this, Chial couldn't hide the joy on his face. "Success!" he cried out softly, but right then, Jionghwa rushed over as if she were possessed. She hurriedly grabbed Chial's shoulders and asked rapidly, "What was that?" "That was an amplification technique, wasn't it?" Hearing this, Chial felt a bit awkward, looked away, and replied, Yes, it was an amplification technique." "What?" Jionghwa shouted, "How did you do that?" To this question, Chiol wasn't stupid enough to give a detailed explanation. He just shrugged and answered vaguely, I just could do it. Naturally, Jeonghwa wasn't satisfied with that answer. She said irritably, I mean, how were you able to do it? Jeol frowned and questioned back, why should I tell you? In response, Jeonghwa showed clear eagerness, because you only knew about it thanks to the notebook I gave you. I've lived my whole life for this. I've been searching for this for over 10 years, even when I was kicked out of the house. I beg you. She squeezed Chiol's hand, her eyes sincere as if she were pleading. If I do something for you, will you show me? Chiol looked at Jeonghwa and let out a sigh. All right, but you have to promise me 3 things. 3 things. The first thing, Chiol said seriously, is that you must not tell anyone about me without my permission. Naturally, that includes the eldest brother and your father. Why? Jeonghwa asked blankly. Chiol replied curtly, because I don't like other people talking about me without my consent. Hearing this, Jeonghwa seemed to remember something. She suddenly became quieter, her face tinged with sadness. Ah, I understand, I was like that too. Her expression made Chiol wonder. Why does she look so unhappy? However, putting that aside, Chiol continued with the second request. The second thing is, you must not lie to me because we have to trust each other. I will also be honest with you to the best of my ability. Hearing that, Jeonghwa hesitated a little. But after just a few seconds she agreed, all right, so what's the last thing? As for the last thing, the following dialogue was hidden by the author. Time passed quickly and it was now 1 year later. At this moment, the maid Gawa was holding a certain letter and rushed to inform Chiol, shouting, young master, young master. Inside the training yard, Chiol saw her frantic state and stopped his movements, turning to ask, Nanny, what's happened that you've run all the way to the training grounds? Opposite him, Gawa was nearly out of breath but managed to choke out, here, look at this. With that, she handed the letter to the protagonist, making Jeonghwa, who was standing nearby, a bit curious. However, with memories from his past life, Chiol had already guessed what it was, thinking to himself, it's finally here. The letter read, Summoning Order Subject, 9th Young Master Young Scheduled Date, September 10th, 10:00 Content, participants in the naming ceremony must gather at the Central Martial Field before 10:00 on September 10th. Note, anyone bringing items outside the regulated list will be strictly punished. Representative, Patriarch Lee Myeonjung. Seeing his eldest brother's name written inside the letter, Chiol felt a bit curious. The representative is Patriarch Myeonjung. Is father not at home? I haven't heard any news about him heading out on a campaign. Turning back to Jeonghwa, for some reason she started getting so annoyed she looked ready to spit fire. The naming ceremony. Seeing this, Chiol didn't understand what she was throwing a fit about and asked, why are you suddenly so agitated? To explain, Jeonghwa scratched her head in frustration and said, everything was just starting to click. This is the most important time. If you participate in the naming ceremony, you'll be tied down there. No, don't participate. She looked just like a child throwing a tantrum over a lost toy, making Chiol shake his head in weariness. It's been a year since I made the pact with my aunt. Since then, I've been researching magic with her. Modern magic focuses on prime mana, while ancient magic focuses on exposed mana. Combining these two systems creates a completely new type of magic, the lifelong dream she wanted to achieve. Prime mana is used to store and change mana attributes, while exposed mana helps control and operate it. Thanks to this, my magic application has far surpassed other children my age. Beside him, Jeonghwa continued to mumble incessantly, giving Chiol a headache. Can you really not skip it? Researching magic is much more interesting. Hearing this, the protagonist didn't want to waste time and settled the matter. You know that's impossible, right? Don't worry, even if my time is cut a bit, I'll continue practicing magic and restoring ancient magic. His words made Jeonghwa's eyes go wide and mental question marks popped up all over her head. How can you do that? The naming ceremony training schedule will be incredibly intense. He responded with a look of absolute confidence. I will do both at the same time. Time passed quickly. Chiol and the young HWA were now present inside a certain room. Notably, both of them were sitting inside a glass cage. In front of them, a man spoke up to remind them, training begins today. First, endure magic attacks for 30 minutes. This man was the captain of the Blood Tiger Squad, Instructor Jang Wook. Next, the inside of the glass cage began to spray countless bolts of electricity in every direction. However, before they could even hit Chiol, they were knocked aside by an invisible barrier surrounding his body. Seeing this, Jang Wook narrowed his eyes and fell into thought. Normally, the ninth young master who had never undergone basic training should have been knocked out by the shock instantly. But he was parrying everything with magic. Sensing Jang Wook staring at him, Chial glanced over to observe him as well. That single look made Jang Wook flinch in alarm. That kid! Is he testing me to gauge his own level while forcing the instructors to teach at a higher level? Does a 10-year-old illegitimate son dare to do such a thing? Damn it. Calling him an illegitimate son? No, with that kind of ability, calling him that is an insult to a martial artist. I have to reevaluate this. This is no longer a simple training session to prepare for the naming ceremony, but an opportunity to pass on knowledge to him with everything I've got. At this thought, Jang Wook's hands instinctively clenched. He felt a surge of excitement at Chial's massive potential. Time passed, Chial stretched wearily after the electrocution exercise. Phew, finally done. This clan is seriously crazy. To train magic resistance, they just throw me into a magic discharge device, but I didn't expect the other side to be the one to apologize first. At some point, the way people looked at him had changed. Anyway, time to go rest for a bit, Chial muttered and quickly left. However, things never go quite as planned. At that moment, a dark shadow suddenly appeared beside Chial and launched a sneak attack. But with the alertness and knowledge from his past life, Chial easily swung his arm to block the attack. The attacker was none other than the little girl HWA. Seeing her attack fail, she coldly ordered Chial, "Hey, you illegitimate brat, come out here for a second." After speaking, she yanked her hand away from Chial's. Meanwhile, Chial had no intention of following her and asked back, "What kind of trick are you pulling now?" Chial's blunt words immediately made HWA furious. She pointed directly at him and snapped, "Watch your mouth. I am a legitimate child and you are just an illegitimate son. Besides, I'm a year older than you." From Chial's perspective, he didn't have time to argue with a child. Instead of wasting time on something so useless, he preferred to go train or rest. Thus, Chial waved his hand in dismissal. "I don't have time to bicker with you." He turned as if to leave, driving HWA crazy with rage. The little girl immediately concentrated the mana inside her body into her fist and screamed, "Hey, don't you dare ignore me." Chial sensed the mana fluctuation and turned back in shock. "She dares to use mana? I intended to let this go, but I suppose I have to teach her a lesson." With that thought, he leaned to the side to dodge the punch. Simultaneously, before HWA could pull her arm back, Chial's hand darted out like a flash, grabbing Hwa's fair neck and lifting her entire body into the air. Next, Chial pulled her close and warned, "If you want to whine, go whine to your mother. Don't bother me, I'm very busy." Having said his piece, Chial let out a sigh of annoyance and dropped her collar. Meanwhile, HWA, realizing she couldn't outfight Chial, started screaming at the top of her lungs. "This is all your fault. Because you caused that massive scene at the selection ceremony, I'm constantly being compared to you. Please just know your place as an illegitimate child and shut up. It's so unfair. I work myself to the bone every day, losing sleep and skipping meals to train while you were just born with superior talent. I didn't want this either, but my mother." At this point, HWA realized she had said too much and quickly covered her mouth. As for Chial, hearing this triggered his life lesson mode. "Blaming others? How easy for you, isn't it? As you said, I'm an illegitimate son. This status doesn't allow me the luxury of that right. You're losing sleep, then don't sleep at all. You can't keep up even without snacks, then skip your main meals too. If I annoy you, then use any means necessary to defeat me. And then force me to apologize to you. That is the Lee clan way." With that, Chial didn't want to waste any more breath and left immediately. Behind him, the young Lee girl clenched her fists and wailed, "That little brat, talking so tough. At the naming ceremony, I'll show results far beyond yours and force you to call me big sister. Kneel and beg, mark my words." Chial turned his head and replied, "Yeah, I'll be waiting to see it." Time passed until the afternoon. The scene shifted to the training area for direct descendants, the 7th area. At this time, the clan's matriarch Baekhyun came to visit her daughter. Seeing her, a nearby maid hurriedly bowed and said, "The madam has arrived." Lady Baekhyun replied with a cold face, "Leave us. I have something to say to my daughter." With that, she walked straight into the training room. Little HWA was still working hard practicing against some training dummies. Then Baekhyun spoke up, "What do you think you're doing?" The familiar voice made HWA jump and turn around. "Mother, I'm practicing." She spoke with her eyes lowered, not daring to look Baekhyun in the face. And as she expected, Baekhyun had only come there to berate her. "I've heard the stories. You were actually overwhelmed by him. I've told you if you can't suppress him, then crush him. How disappointing. If you're only training like this because you're afraid of punishment, then stop. Opposite her, HWA was silent for a few seconds. Then she raised her head, looked directly at BQian and shot back, I know what you think about my training, but I'm doing this because I want to. I will defeat that guy, but not because you ordered me to, because I want to do it. I'll decide for myself. Looking at her determined expression, Lady BQian quickly guessed something and muttered softly, agitated by a nobody. You are a direct descendant of the Li clan. You and he started from completely different places. Defeating him is a given, yet you let yourself get worked up. Reaching this point, she took out a small glass bottle, handed it to HWA, and instructed, This is Enchanted Dream. It is a lethal poison. If you cannot surpass him, then trample him. That is the Li clan way. Having said that, she left the room, leaving little HWA behind, still dazed. Back to the maid Gawa, she currently had a look of pure shock as she stared at the computer screen. This is impossible. Before her was the Li clan website used to evaluate and rank the disciples within the family. It was currently displaying the results for week 14. Li Qiao, gender, male, mana arts, rank 1, weapon arts, rank 1, theory, rank 1, overall ranking, rank 1. Beside her, Qiao smiled boastfully. Well, Nanny, less worried now. Seeing these results, all of Gawa's worries vanished. She excitedly pulled Qiao into an embrace and said happily, I haven't been able to help the young master at all, and yet you've done this well. Hearing this, Qiao smiled back. You've helped me plenty, don't say that. At the same time, heavy footsteps suddenly rang out from outside. Both of them turned to look at each other curiously. And a second later, Jeonghwa ran in and shouted, Kid, let's go train. Seeing her enthusiastic state, Qiao couldn't help but remind her awkwardly, but I just finished practicing. That's exactly why we have to keep going. Practicing mana will help you feel less tired, Jeonghwa said while showing off her biceps. But those words could only fool an ordinary child, not someone like Qiao who had lived for decades. I've never heard of it having that effect before. Qiao spoke while looking at Jeonghwa with eyes full of doubt, making her feel a bit embarrassed and unable to face him directly. Really? It's true, probably, Jeonghwa stammered in response. Putting that aside, Qiao remembered something and continued, Sigh, fine, anyway I have something I want to show you. Hearing this, Jeonghwa was initially curious. But very quickly she thought of something and her eyes widened. No way, have you reached the first star level already? Qiao simply gave a light smile in agreement. Mana control techniques normally go through 3 stages. Body strengthening, reaching the realm of the strong body. Changing mana properties, reaching the realm of Qigong. Manifesting superhuman power through mana, reaching the realm of aura. But his mana art was different. Even at stage 1, it could do more things and exert more power. Therefore, Jeonghwa's mana system was divided into levels called stars. Jeonghwa was currently channeling her energy into Qiao to check him. After getting the results, she said happily, Perfect, it really is first star. Did it feel strange when you used the magic? I thought it would take at least another year. Qiao shivered as he thought about the hardships he'd endured. I realized this while studying the theory. Looking back, it really was a crazy type of training. If I had failed to control the mana, the balance between my heart and mana circuits could have completely collapsed. But in reality, letting everything happen naturally was enough. Mana is like flowing water, it will follow its inherent laws. In the end, our bodies are just containers for mana. Qiao's calm words seemed to spark an epiphany in Jeonghwa. She whispered, the body is a container. Kid, I think I can do it too. It'll take time, but I can do it, she said with a joyful tone. Seeing this, Qiao gave a small smile, happy for his aunt. Did she just gain an insight? Qiao thought. Before Jeonghwa rushed over to hug him, saying happily, Thank you, my little darling, you really are my lucky charm. As she spoke, her arms instinctively tightened, making Qiao's bones creak. Hey, let go, you're gonna break my ribs, Qiao shouted. Hearing that, Jeonghwa regretfully set Qiao down but said excitedly, Wonderful. Then let's move on to the second star stage. From the start, you knew your first star was different from the usual stage 1, right? So, in your opinion, what is the thing you use best? Qiao rubbed his chin and thought for a few seconds before answering, What I use best? I think it's the sword. Before he could finish, Jeonghwa shook her head in disagreement. I don't think so. This comment startled Qiao and he asked back, But you've never seen me practice swordsmanship. Jeonghwa shrugged and replied, Oh, but I have, a few times when I was free. My point is, you have a talent that far exceeds swordsmanship. It's a bit hard to put into words, but your greatest talent is mana arts. Your mana aptitude is so overwhelming that it makes everything else pale in comparison. I've tried teaching the magic I created to many people, but no one could do it. From Chial's perspective, he began to look at his two hands with eyes full of doubt. Before I returned to the past, I was mocked for being unable to use mana. I wonder about these thoughts in my heart. Seeing Chial so pensive, Jeonhwa flicked his forehead and reminded him, but for you now, reaching second star isn't difficult. And if you succeed with second star, the naming ceremony will be nothing more than child's play. After that, I'll teach you the real techniques, so focus. Chial replied happily, yes, I understand. By the way, Aunt, what is that thing beside you? As he spoke, he glanced at the wooden box placed on the table. Ah, this, Jeonhwa said softly. And then suddenly, something flew past Chial's face at super speed. It immediately left a scratch on his cheek and embedded itself deep into the wall behind him, causing cracks to appear. Jeonhwa answered with a smile, it's a steel marble. You have to learn to release mana while moving. If you can only use it while standing still, that mana art is no better than trash. Alright, let's begin, she said with a face full of excitement. But for some reason, our protagonist had a slight feeling of unease about this hellish training session. Time passed quickly, shifting the scene to a certain martial arena. Chial and HWA were being trained by Captain Yunquin. I am the captain of the Blood Tiger Squad, Lee Yunquin. From now on, I will guide you in the techniques of Sungmuiga. Choose the weapons you will use and bring them here. I'll give you 1 minute, so don't dawdle. Hearing this, Chial and HWA rushed toward the weapon racks. But during this, for some reason, HWA kept glancing at Chial, making him feel a bit restless. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and spoke up. Honestly, what are you staring at? Do you have something to say? He snapped, making HWA flinch and immediately deny it. I'm not starring, I have nothing to say to you. After speaking, she leaned in and whispered to the protagonist, you use a sword too, right? No. Chial replied coldly, then quickly grabbed 2 swords and a spear, returning to the arena. This left HWA in utter shock. Huh, but I saw you learning weapons before, it was clearly the sword. On his end, Captain Yunquin looked at the pile of weapons in Chial's hands and asked curiously, what are you doing? Chial replied, you told us to choose our weapons and bring them here. Yunquin reminded him once more, I told you to choose the thing you use. Chial shrugged and replied, well, these are the things I use. Hearing this, Captain Yunquin could only remain speechless and shake his head in disappointment. I thought you weren't completely stupid, but it turns out you're a blockhead. Engrave the words I'm about to say into your soul. I said I would teach you secret arts, but it's not about techniques or stances. In Sungmuiga, there are countless secrets called governing intent. To comprehend those secrets, you must first awaken the primordial origin that sleeps within your blood. From now on, I will help you open those senses, so don't worry too much about awakening your instincts. As he spoke, Yunquin swung the spear in his hand, creating gusts of wind as he quickly entered an attacking stance. Looking at his aggressive demeanor, HWA couldn't help but feel afraid and said, what? What is he planning to do? As for Chial, he had already guessed what was coming next and warned, if you don't want to be knocked out right at the start, get ready. Before the words were even out, Yunquin's figure blurred and he instantly appeared in front of Chial, delivering a powerful, unpredictable strike that sent Chial flying into the air. The only lucky thing was that in that brief moment, he managed to use a sword to protect himself. This surprised Yunquin, who laughed loudly. Ho, you actually blocked that. Chial landed lightly on his feet and gritted his teeth, thinking, damn it, I didn't expect to have to go through this madness all over again. In my past life, I couldn't even finish this training. But this life is different. With that, Chial concentrated power into his feet and lunged forward. His stomp was so powerful it left a crack in the floor, and he charged with wind-shattering speed. Time continued to pass as Chial and Hwa's training under Captain Yunquin's instruction proceeded. Naturally, given his strength, the two of them were brutally beaten down. So a month has passed since I started training with Lee Yunquin. No matter how you look at it, having a 10-year-old child undergo training to the point of broken bones and internal injuries isn't exactly a workout for kids. But I have no intention of complaining, I'm gradually getting the hang of it, Chial said with a light smile. Elsewhere, little HWA woke up with a start. In that haze, did I faint again? She asked in confusion. Chial shrugged and noted, yes, that was your 20th time. Whereas I've only fainted 16 times. The protagonist's tone was a bit teasing, making HWA furious. she snapped. If only I had prepared better on the first day. From Captain Yunquin's perspective, as he watched the two children bickering, he silently calculated. The eighth young lady, this child has an extraordinary constitution. I used a bit too much force, yet she hasn't suffered a major injury once. As for that illegitimate son, from the first day, I had the feeling he was something valuable. Initially, when I saw him bring a whole pile of weapons, I thought he was some fool, but his proficiency with each weapon is quite solid and his practical application exceeds expectations. Furthermore, after only 1 month, the results are starting to show. How interesting. At this thought, Yunquin's cold face broke into a thin smile and he decided to beat down the kids in front of him even more. Alright, let's begin training. Everyone back to your positions. Hearing this, Chial and HWA quickly stopped their bickering and gripped their weapons tightly, their faces turning dead serious. Next, Chial realized that if they fought normally, they'd never even touch Yunquin. So he turned and proposed, "Hey, I'll give a signal, you try to block him once." HWA asked curiously, "Why should I do that?" Chial shrugged and replied, "Fine, don't if you don't want to, I just thought we might be able to land a hit on the old guy." His words immediately changed Hwa's expression. It seemed the girl was also incredibly bitter about being beaten by Yunquin for so long. Then she asked tentatively, "Are you sure?" Chiel nodded and replied, "Positive." Hearing this, HWA didn't hesitate anymore. She gripped her weapon and charged to cut him off, shouting, "You owe me one." Behind her, Chial also launched an attack right after Hwa's rhythm. In his mind, he began to think, "With my talent alone, I have no chance of winning, so I can only take advantage of the numbers." Opposite them, Yunquin saw the two of them coordinating and didn't hold back his praise. "Cooperating, isn't that the optimal choice? But that's only if the plan works." As he spoke, he tilted his head to one side, dodging the spear thrust from Chial. Immediately after, he swung his spear to counter. However, Chial had already anticipated this and quickly retracted his spear to block the blow. This caused a look of surprise to flash in Yunquin's eyes. Following that, he also gathered his strength and charged rapidly toward the boy. And right at the moment, when both of them were about to unleash their moves on each other, Chial shouted, "Now!" With that, he leapt backward to keep his distance, while little HWA charged in to attack with lightning speed. However, her sword strike was easily blocked. Behind her, Chial didn't expect the two of them to be able to hit Yunquin that easily either. He cast aside his spear and silently transformed his infinite weapon from its ring form into a longsword. "The only thing that can cause damage is a sword I obtained from the endless secret vault." Then, he began to shroud the sword in his own energy and concentrated strength into the soles of his feet. He kicked off powerfully, lunging forward like a shot arrow. At this moment, little HWA had already been knocked backward by the instructor. However, Chial seized the opportunity with perfect timing. Right then, he suddenly let go of the sword in his hand. He concentrated his force into his fist and threw a straight punch forward. But there was no way it would be that easy. His fist was caught firmly inside Captain Yunquin's palm. This caused Chial to let out a forced chuckle. "Haha, you blocked it." Before the words were fully out, his body was sent flying backward like a cannonball by a single punch from the captain. His body crashed heavily into the wall, causing him to involuntarily cough up some blood. Nevertheless, the combined attack of the two left Yunquin quite satisfied. His voice carried a hint of praise. "So it took 37 days, congratulations, you have awakened your sixth sense. But the young lady is still a long way off." As he spoke, he leaned to one side to dodge Hwa's attack. Simultaneously, he tripped the young girl, sending her crashing straight into the wall. Seeing the battered state of both of them, Yunquin spared them for the time being and ended the day's training. "Let's end it here." As for little HWA, she immediately turned to question the protagonist. "Hey, you said we could land at least one hit and I believed you." That boy. He paid no mind to their bickering. After turning to leave, Captain Yunquin silently looked at his slightly bruised and swollen palm, thinking. In the end, even though he activated magic, it only managed to pierce through a tiny bit. Even if it was a small amount, he broke the taboo against using magic. Giving up a technique like that, combined with his already excellent combat instincts, he will become someone the pillars of the clan fear. Time passed quickly. On the 47th day after HWA awakened her sixth sense, the training process with Captain Yunquin came to an end. The remaining time was spent resting and reviewing what they had learned. And at that time, the person who came to find me was my eldest brother, Lee Myung-young. Lee Myung-young is the eldest son of Lee Tishin. His title is Songseong, a master who has reached the standard second grade in magic and the actual second grade in martial arts. Everyone both admires and fears him, but to me, my big brother is my only true sibling, Chiol silently reminded himself. Returning to reality after sitting down at the tea table, Myung-young said apologetically to his younger brother, "I'm sorry I haven't been able to check on you, it's just an excuse, but I've been a bit busy lately." Chiol replied gently, knowing his eldest brother had a billion problems to worry about. "It's okay, I'm fine." Opposite him, Myung-young saw Chiol's attitude and chuckled. "This is probably our first time meeting, yet you knew exactly who I am, didn't you?" To this, Chiol replied, "Of course. Even though I'm just an illegitimate child as your brother, how could I not know my eldest brother's face?" Hearing this, Myung-young's body suddenly shuddered for a moment. Then his face turned sad as he reminded Chiol, "Illegitimate? Never say that again. Even if our mothers are different, you and I are still brothers." Saying these words, his heart felt a bit bitter for Chiol, a child who hadn't even had his naming ceremony yet but already viewed himself as illegitimate. Unaware of these thoughts in his brother's heart, Chiol awkwardly scratched his head. "I'm sorry." Seeing this, Myung-young could only let out a heavy sigh. "There's no need to apologize, just as long as you understand. Next time there's no need for such formal greetings. We're brothers, why be so distant?" "Yes, I understand," Chiol nodded with a smile. In his memory, back when they were younger, his eldest brother always had this kind of personality. Putting the greetings aside, Myung-young presented Chiol with a gift. "This is a meeting gift. I obtained this when I enrolled at the Eiffel Magic University in France, but I think it will be more useful to you. This is a divine elixir known as nectar." As he spoke, he took a small glass vial from his inner pocket. As someone who had lived a full life in his previous existence, Chiol recognized what this was. It was a high-level elixir brewed by the Magic Tower in France, only 500 ml every 10 years. After thinking it over, he reached out to take the small bottle and stammered, "Eldest brother, you've given me such a precious thing, I truly thank you." On the opposite side, for some reason, Myung-young's reaction was one of slight bewilderment at Chiol's words. Then he muttered, "You're a bit different." Chiol narrowed his eyes, asking back in confusion, "What do you mean by that?" Explaining this, Myung-young said with a smile, "All the younger siblings I've met before considered me a rival, so this feeling is both strange and pleasant." From Chiol's perspective, he also specifically explained his thoughts. "It's not that I don't consider you a rival. Since we were born into this clan, you are also my rival. So don't just see me as a cute kid. Who knows, one day I might become your greatest rival. I hope we have an interesting competition." Chiol's confidence made Myung-young laugh refreshingly. "Haha, alright. I will wait for that day, the day you become my strongest rival." Saying so, he gave his younger brother a pat on the head. Meanwhile, Chiol told himself, "My eldest brother always truly loved and protected me. This time I will definitely be the one to protect him." Time passed quickly until a few days later. Today was the day of the Lee clan's second exam. The naming ceremony had arrived. At this moment, on a steamboat, Chiol and HWA were being transported to the island where the exam would take place. It is called Red Blue Island, an island where the color of the soil changes depending on the density of magic in the air. For a very long time, it has been the site of the Lee clan's naming ceremonies. Just then, as the ship drew close to the island, a staff member on board spoke up to guide them. "Now, I will give the instructions for the naming exam. Young lady and young master must survive on Red Blue Island for 3 weeks and prove yourselves. The devices issued to you now are for tracking your location. Unless it's an emergency, you must keep them on you at all times. The final gate of the exam will open 2 days after the end of the 3rd week. Good luck to you both." Seeing this, Chiol and HWA also quickly strapped the watches onto their wrists. Then, carrying backpacks containing necessary supplies, they were left on this deserted island. Next, not knowing what she was thinking, little HWA suddenly spoke up. "Hey, I have something to say." Without letting her finish her sentence, Chiol sighed and lamented. "Looks like you've made up your mind, haven't you?" "Huh, what are you talking about?" HWA asked back. Chiol just spoke plainly. "You've been wanting to say something ever since training started." The direct words made the 12-year-old girl blush and she shouted, "That, how did you know?" Looking at her flustered state, Chiol laughed to himself. "How could I not know?" Thinking that, he asked, Say it, I'm listening. From Hwa's perspective, the young girl was a bit nervous, swallowing hard to find her resolve. Then she unpinned the badge from her shirt and turned her eyes to observe Chiol. She signaled to him with her eyes to do the same. Next, after putting away the 2 badges that were likely listening devices, Chiol asked casually, "It's all done, what's the matter?" At this point, HWA didn't hide it anymore. She took the glass vial containing the poison that Lady Becudian had given her earlier out of her pocket and said directly, "This is a poison called Bewildering Dream. It only works on children under 15. If exposed to the air for more than 5 minutes, it evaporates on its own. Once it enters the body, it causes magic circuits to become clogged for a long period." Opposite her, hearing this, Chiol's face turned as dark as a coal pot and he asked coldly, "Who did you receive it from?" To this question, HWA naturally could not reveal that her own mother was the one who gave it to her. "I don't intend to tell you that." Saying so, she threw the vial straight against a nearby rock, shattering it into many pieces. She continued, "See, now there's no evidence left. I will defeat you fair and square without needing to use this poison. So you'd better put everything you've got into the match too." Her voice was full of determination, leaving Chiol a bit stunned. But then he replied cheerfully, "I intended to do that even without you saying it." "Very well," HWA nodded with satisfaction. Next, they both pinned the badges back onto themselves. But before moving, HWA didn't forget to turn back and warn, "Have you put your tracking device back on? Don't recklessly go into the center of the island before you're familiar with the terrain, it's dangerous." Behind her, Chiol found the girl's constant reminding tedious and said boredly, Yeah, I know, are you worried about me or something?" In front, Chiol's attitude immediately made HWA furious. "Worried? I'm just afraid you'll end up dead somewhere before you can even fight me." Before she could even finish her sentence, a series of terrifying roars from some monster echoed from within the forest, abruptly ending their bickering. Both kids exchanged uneasy glances looking at the forest ahead of them. Then HWA spoke softly, "Well then, don't die, I'm going first." Saying so, the little girl quickly headed to one side. Watching her silhouette gradually shrink, Chiol whispered, "She's gone. Even so, my goal isn't the outskirts of the island. All right, I should get moving too." Straight toward the center of Red Blue Island. As he spoke, he cracked his knuckles, his eyes showing endless excitement for the journey ahead. At this same time, in the Lee clan's observation room, the core members of the clan were observing Hwa's activities through the monitoring screens. Someone remarked, "As expected of the Lee clan's 8th child, she's already completed her first hunt. The number of monsters HWA has taken down is quite high. After all, this is probably Hwa's first real combat." But that sense didn't just appear naturally, it took 47 days if I recall, the cunning old man Chiol Jun said while stroking his beard with a laugh. Responding to the old man's words, Captain Yunquin, leaning against the back wall, also spoke up. "The child wasn't originally like that. I thought it would take at least 2 full months." Saying so, he thought to himself, "She has talent, but that's only part of it. Simply put, someone stimulated it. That would be the youngest, Li Young." Thinking this, he glanced toward another screen in front which was showing Chiol. Unlike little HWA, who was constantly fighting monsters, Chiol seemed to be merely exploring the island. This made old Chiol Jun curious enough to ask, "But what on earth is that boy doing?" "It looks like the boy is looking for a shelter," Yunquin shared his thoughts. Immediately after these words, several contemptuous voices arose. "Acting like a scurrying mouse, what a coward! Truly an illegitimate child." Elsewhere, Myung-young was also present in the observation room. Hearing them mock his younger brother like that, how could he stay silent? He glanced at the crowd and reminded them, "Stop talking. In such a dangerous place, finding a shelter first is a wise move, there is nothing to criticize." His words made a few foolish individuals cough awkwardly and make excuses. That's true, haha. Perhaps we've just been looking at the 8th young lady too much, so our standards have gone up." On the other side, the cunning old man Chiol Jun did not respect Myung-young's status and continued to sneer. "Let's see, in the Lee clan, being ordinary is a sin, isn't it? For someone carrying Lee blood to act like a commoner is laughable." For Myung-young, in the face of the old man's words, his hands clenched in indignation. He thought, belittling and mocking a child just because of his birth, since when did our clan become like this, or perhaps we were always this way? But what is Li Young planning by heading toward the center of the island? Thinking of this, he turned his eyes to observe Uncle Yihang nearby. At that moment, Yiheng was so worried he was biting his nails incessantly. "Tusk, what is this brat thinking?" he muttered, making Myung-Young feel that he wasn't the only one confused. "What exactly are you planning to do, Li Young?" The scene shifted to Chial's location. By this time, he had found a cave to serve as his shelter. Next, he began burning some herbs and then tossed a fire torch into the cave to check if anything was inside. Following that, he used leaves to cover the entrance. His careful actions began to receive some sounds of approval. His hiding skills aren't bad. Then suddenly, the cunning old man Chial Jun widened his eyes and shouted, "Wait, hold on, what is that kid doing?" Following the old man's gaze, Chial had taken off the watch and the badge on his chest and set them aside. Next, he covered the two items with leaves. Immediately, the signal was blocked and the screen turned black. Behind him, Captain Yunquin couldn't help but laugh heartily. "Haha, truly unpredictable." As for Yiheng and Myung-Young, they could only hold their heads at Chial's actions. As for Chial, he had many secrets, so naturally he couldn't let the people in the clan observe him so casually. After carefully hiding the two items, he murmured, "There's no need to let others see this. Now I can use infinite. Since I'm on Red Blue Island, I must harvest as much as possible. Now let's go." As he spoke, he transformed the ring on his hand into the shape of a short sword. Time passed quickly until evening. Currently, our protagonist was looking with a grimace at an earthenware pot in front of him. Inside the pot was a dark blue liquid that looked extremely toxic. Chial even vaguely saw a face screaming within the liquid. Just looking at its appearance was enough to make one feel repulsed. "I guess it's done, but it looks horrific. Is this really magic tea? No one looking at this would think it's an infusion of magic herbs," he told himself. "In my past life, I couldn't even afford cheap elixirs, so I had to crawl after herbalists and alchemists to find magic herbs. Red Blue Island is filled with magic in the air, so I must take advantage of it to increase my magic capacity." The youngest ant said so as well. "If I drink an infusion of magic herbs, it will definitely be more effective." "Phew, all right," Chial said through gritted teeth and slowly brought the earthenware pot to his face. Not long after, the earthenware pot was tossed aside and Chial's entire body had turned pale as if all life had been drained from him. "That was truly a taste from hell," he groaned. Thus, the lonely battle for 3 weeks officially began. Time passed quickly. Today was the 18th day of the naming ceremony. The scene shifted to Lee Myung-Young's office. While he was working, someone suddenly entered the room and spoke up. "Captain, may I come in?" Hearing this, Myung-Young stopped his hands and replied, "Ah, yes." Opposite him, the stranger saw Myung-Young was still working and said apologetically, "I'm sorry for disturbing you." Myung-Young waved it off and replied, "It's fine, it looks like bad news, doesn't it?" To this, the brown-haired man nodded solemnly and explained, "A large group of nomads seems to have infiltrated the northern region of South Korea. I thought they would pass through the unmapped lands, but they are heading straight south. 2 days' journey from them is the Lee clan's magic stone mine." The person speaking was the vice captain of the Blue Sky Sword team under Lee Myung-Young, named Yu Gunseong. At this information, Myung-Young stroked his chin, thinking of some news he had recently received. Nomads, they usually choose unmapped lands to pass through, committing countless crimes along the way. Thinking that, he muttered a suspicion. "Those hyenas certainly wouldn't dare violate our territory without a plot." Gunseong completely agreed and added, "On the surface, they look like nomads, but it's very likely just a cover. It's also possible another force is pulling the strings behind this." So Myung-Young began tapping his fingertips on the table and added, "There was previous intelligence about the Nine Dragon City moving forces toward the northern border." Speaking of Nine Dragon City, it was a massive power in the Central Plains. "We share a border through the unmapped lands. They have provoked the Lee clan many times by encroaching on our territory. Perhaps news of father's absence has leaked out, so this is the most opportune time for the enemy to strike." Thinking of this, Myung-Young looked up and asked, "Is our intelligence branch aware of this?" The answer was a shake of the head from Gunseong. "I found out before them since you told me to keep an eye on the situation." Hearing this, Myung-Young stood up from his chair and said tiredly, "Then cooperate with the Intelligence Investigation Department to look further into it. I have a feeling this isn't simple. I hope it's just a bad premonition." He spoke while observing out the window. However, the sense of unease did not fade at all. The scene shifted to somewhere inside Red Blue Island. Suddenly, a red magic circle appeared on the ground. Next, the magic circle glowed brightly and created a spatial rift hovering in the air. From within the rift, a figure stepped out. He was dressed in white and held a Buddhist staff in his hand. The stranger muttered in a mocking tone, "2 nights is more than enough to kill an illegitimate child." It seemed his target was Chial. Time passed quickly until the next morning, somewhere on the island. A massive dragon with glowing red eyes let out a threatening growl at a figure before it. This was Draco, a rank 7 dragon monster. Standing opposite it was none other than our protagonist. He gripped his sword tightly, panting from exhaustion as if he had been battling this oversized lizard for quite some time. Then, as if looking to end the fight quickly, the dragon suddenly opened its maw and took a deep breath. Its throat ballooned out and a bright orange light could be clearly seen from the outside. Just a second later, it opened its mouth wide, releasing a gargantuan pillar of fire that shot forward with wind-shattering speed. As for Chial, he could already feel an intense wave of heat blasting directly against his face. His eyes widened to their limit as he threw his body to the side, dodging the blast by the narrowest of margins. Immediately after, without a moment's hesitation, Chial lunged straight toward the dragon. Taking advantage of the moment it remained stationary while breathing fire, he surged forward, concentrating mana into his blade to execute a technique known as mana slash. Chial utilized the momentum of his descent from above to drive his sword deep into the exact center of the dragon's head. Bolts of lightning exploded from within his strike, leaving the creature's head scorched and blackened. Finally, the giant beast could only let out a mournful shriek before heading straight into its next life. As for Chial, only after sensing that the monster no longer possessed a spark of life did he let out a soft sigh of relief, forced to admit its lethality. Phew, a dragon really is something else. It's on an entirely different level compared to the other monsters. If I had fought this thing the moment I stepped foot on this island, I probably would have collapsed on the very first blow. Since entering Red Green Island, it took me 19 days just to reach the dragon's territory. But staying any longer would just be a waste of time. I still have one reason for coming all this way. He thought this as he slid his sword back into its sheath. Before he could do anything else, his attention was caught by a noisy commotion in the distance. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Chial began to carefully and stealthily track the source of the sound. According to his vision, the things making those bizarre noises were a pack of lizardmen who knew how to use weapons. They were rank 8 monsters. The fact that these blue-skinned creatures were suddenly gathered here, howling like lunatics, made Chial feel suspicious. Something unusual has been happening since yesterday. Normally, lizardmen should only appear on the outskirts of the island, yet now they're pushing into the center, constantly attacking and then retreating. These things aren't smart and their rank is low too. Could they be influenced by something from the outside? If that's the case, I have to check it out. Thinking that, he drew his sword and dashed out from the bushes, heading straight toward the pack of lizardmen. The moment they spotted his silhouette, they let out frightened cries and scrambled to flee. The monsters had no intention of fighting whatsoever. This confirmed Chial's theory, just as I thought. Once might be a coincidence, but happening twice means something is definitely wrong. I'd better shadow them. He quickly swung his sword, decapitating the monsters, as he silently speculated. A strange phenomenon is occurring on this island, just as I suspected. Back to the mage who had infiltrated the island the previous day. At this moment, his entire body was radiating a purple mana source as he mumbled incessantly like he was in a trance. Face-to-face, martial artist, combat all set the array. For such a small kid to hold his own against so many monsters, the descendants of the Li clan really are different. But it's nothing to worry about. After all, he's just a child, one who will certainly walk right into this obvious trap. I'm afraid I won't even need to use Plan B, the young mage spoke while stroking an egg in his hand. He was the beast tamer Nishiyama Shogo. Exactly as he had predicted, Chial, following the trail of the lizardmen, had found his way here exactly as intended. Perched atop a cluster of trees, Chial had now realized his situation. I was a bit suspicious because it was so blatant, but it turns out it really was a trap. The power to control monsters. Is he a beast tamer? But how could an outsider sneak all the way in here? Chial wondered to himself. However, he very quickly came up with an answer for himself. Wait, it's not impossible. If a teleportation array was set up inside, it could happen. That would mean the person behind this must be a member of the Li clan. Should I report back to the clan and wait for reinforcements? No, by the time they arrive, it'll be too late. I wouldn't be able to find the person behind this anymore. So there's only one way. I'll hide my presence with a stealth art and finish him off myself. Thinking that, Chial ripped the badge from his chest and tucked it into his pocket. Next, he utilized a stealth art, causing himself to be enveloped in a blue energy source that masked both his breathing and his presence. Immediately after, Chial leaped from the tree trunk and blurred toward Nishiyama at his maximum speed. Without a moment's hesitation, he swung his sword, aiming directly for the man's neck from behind. But things were never going to be easy for Chial. At that very moment, the egg in the mage Nishiyama's hand suddenly emitted an alarm sound. It turned out it wasn't an egg at all, but a bird curled up into a ball, its shape mimicking that of an egg. Its shrill, panicked cry caused Nishiyama to jerk around. He yelled, since when did. Behind him, Chial cursed silently. Damn it, does he have a magical artifact that senses danger? With that thought, Chial increased the speed of his strike. However, Nishiyama reacted just in time. He immediately swung his staff backward, repelling Chial and leaving a long skid mark on the ground. The two momentarily paused. Nishiyama praised him, "Illegitimate son of the Lee clan, you're better than I expected." To this, Chial replied mockingly, "Or maybe you're just too weak." The mockery coming from a child made Nishiyama's blood boil. Focusing on his mission to eliminate the protagonist, he immediately ordered the surrounding lizardmen, "Shut up! Attack him!" Hearing their master's command, the mindless lizardmen charged forward without fear of death, looking to draw blood. Seeing this, Chial began to channel his mana into his sword. He used his ultimate technique, Heavenly Azure Slash, causing his body to blur forward. His blade swayed through the air like a silk ribbon, neatly claiming the heads of 3 lizardmen before they even realized what had happened. However, this did not panic the mage. From the start, he had used the lizardmen to stall Chial, creating an opening to use his magic. Suddenly, a magic circle appeared beneath Chial's feet. From within the circle, countless glowing red chains shot out, tightly binding his body and his sword. Chial looked on blankly, muttering, "I can't move." In front of him, Nishiyama laughed loudly as if victory was already his. "Haha, you've fallen for the trap. This is a high-level array that can seal a martial artist's mana vortex. Without mana, you're just a useless, weak brat, die in your helplessness." He laughed, unaware that his words were the foolish mistake of the day. It had inadvertently given Chial a hint on how to resolve the situation. "Seal my abilities? Then I'll just use my mana circuits instead," Chial said as he began distributing mana throughout his entire body via his meridians. Then his body slowly moved forward. Under the pressure Chial generated, the chains could no longer hold him. They began to creak and groan as if they might shatter at any moment. Then, with a sudden leap forward, Chial shattered the restraining chains and lunged straight at Nishiyama, cutting off his path of escape. In Nishiyama's terrified eyes, Chial pointed his sword at the man's face and asked coldly, "Aren't you going to run?" Nishiyama panicked, stumbling back a few steps while asking, "How did you escape?" Chial, having no obligation to explain, simply shook his head. "I'm not required to tell you, I've already reported this to the clan, so surrender now." From Nishiyama's perspective, perhaps having an ace up his sleeve, he said confidently, "Ha, it doesn't matter. I'll kill you and win back my freedom." To Chial, the mage's delusional words were truly confusing. What the hell are you talking about?" Before he could finish, a massive dark shadow suddenly zoomed toward Chial, sending his small body flying like a cannonball into a nearby tree. The impact was powerful enough to create a deafening sound in the air, and Chial spat out a large amount of blood. After being hit, several connections formed in Chial's mind. He tremblingly raised his head to observe and saw that the thing that had just struck him was a giant green turtle with an incredibly long beard. It was the protector of Red Green Island, the mountain turtle head. A rank 3 monster, truly a powerful beast. How could a mediocre beast tamer like him tame such a thing? Chial thought as he turned a skeptical gaze toward Nishiyama. Just by looking at his face, Nishiyama could read Chial's thoughts and admitted, "It seems you catch on quickly, although I can't control it completely yet. It will certainly obey an order to kill you in cold blood. So it's best if you give up fighting." With that, he pulled several talismans from his sleeve and tossed them into the air. Next, his body dissolved into a plume of purple smoke to avoid being accidentally flattened into a meat patty by the giant turtle during the fight with Chial. Back to Chial's perspective, just feeling the terrifying presence emitted by the giant turtle made the hair on his arms stand up. Chial reminded himself, Calm down, if he can't control it completely, then I just need to catch the beast tamer first. That's the only way to deal with the mountain turtle head. I prepared this as a precaution, but I didn't think I'd actually have to use it. A drug banned because of its severe side effects despite its massive benefits, the mana augmentation pill. As he spoke, he took out a brown pill and tossed it into his mouth. As soon as he swallowed it, a surge of energy flowed through his body, making him feel revitalized. However, this wasn't all Chial needed to prepare. One more thing. The technique Aunt Jeonghwa told me to use only in the most dangerous situations. Now is that time. As he thought this, Chial's body began to emit a terrifying energy. The aura he radiated pushed back all the surrounding debris. He was preparing to use the ultimate technique, defying heaven. Next, because the pill's effects were time-limited, Chial didn't waste a second, blurring forward at lightning speed. He immediately swung his sword at the giant turtle. His strike created a blade of light that slashed straight at its neck. However, it didn't even tickle the turtle. Its defensive capability was high enough to make one despair, leaving Chial in a difficult position. I haven't even touched it and it's stopped. Fine, I'll finish it with this move. Thinking that, he began concentrating energy into his sword to prepare another ultimate technique. However, the giant turtle in front of him wasn't stupid. It had no intention of standing still for Chial's attack. It opened its mouth and emitted a purple sonic wave that rippled outward. Upon impact with the sonic wave, Chial felt a heavy, oppressive weight crush down on him. He muttered, "This roar is a fierce skill. This mana fluctuation is making it impossible for me to move. Damn it." Then, while Chial was still unsure how to deal with the skill, a familiar black smoke began to spread from his heart, instantly lifting the pressure on his body. This surprised Chial. The dark energy in my body countered the mountain turtle head's skill. Now's the time. With that, Chial gathered strength in his feet, launched himself forward with great power, and utilized the technique Mana Slash, which he had learned from the nameless martial artist in the Memories of the Infinite Weapon. The precise strike aimed right for its throat, causing the turtle's head to snap back toward the sky. A pillar of deep purple light began to erupt from its mouth, giving off a spine-chilling sensation. It was so powerful it even dispersed a patch of clouds high above. Back to Chial, the moment he finished the move, he felt an agonizing pain throughout his body. He collapsed to the ground, vomiting blood. Damn it, I'm out of time. The side effects of the mana augmentation and the defying heaven technique are going to paralyze me for a while. I have 10 seconds to find that beast tamer. Thinking this, without a moment to lose, Chial dashed forward, using all his senses to find where Nishiyama had fled. And it seemed the heavens themselves wanted to give Chial a hand. Just then, he noticed a red energy thread on the ground. He hurriedly followed it, and sure enough, the thread led directly to Nishiyama's location. In front of him, Nishiyama turned pale with terror as he saw Chial charging toward him with eyes full of killing intent. What? How is this possible? He let out a small cry and scrambled backward. However, Chial's sword was already nearly upon him. Chial thought, the distance isn't quite enough, just a little more if I were just a bit stronger. Then I just need to extend the blade. Chial gave a loud shout and began utilizing Infinite's transformation ability to make the sword longer. Immediately after, he swung the blade with lightning speed, slashing across Nishiyama's chest and sending him to meet the king of the underworld instantly. Right after finishing, Chial was too exhausted to even hold his sword. I have to take care of myself first. If I faint now, it's all over. Aunt Jeonghwa told me to drink this if I use that move. Luckily, I brought the nectar. Now, before any other monsters crawl over here, I have to deal with this guy first. Thinking this, Chial quickly drank the prepared potion. Immediately after, his body went limp and he collapsed to the side. After an unknown amount of time had passed, Chial opened his eyes once again, only to find himself lying in a pure white space. Wisps of black smoke were constantly radiating from his body. Chial wondered, everything is white, where am I? What happened to the beast tamer and the mountain turtle head? Thinking this, Chial tried to stand up, but a sharp pain surged through him, causing his face to contort. His entire body shook uncontrollably, as if it were about to shatter. Chial pondered silently, unaware that in this vast white space, a giant eye was staring down at him from above. A strange voice began to echo, though it was unclear if Chial could hear it. So it finally turned out like this. Those things are too dangerous for a human to contain. How can they both coexist within a single entity? I had hoped you wouldn't wake up, if only now. The sound silenced for a moment, then rang out once more, "Feed it." Immediately following those words, something fell right in front of Chial. He curiously looked at the object, and an association began to form in his mind regarding its shape. "This is a purple honeycomb. Could it be the purple cloud stone nectar?" The strange voice continued. "Not you, it is it that needs to eat this. The era has shifted. Become strong, child of humanity. Do not let yourself be swallowed by the times." From Chial's perspective, in his haze, he seemed to see the silhouette of that giant turtle talking to him. Then it turned and slowly walked into the distance. At that point, Chial's vision faded to black. Returning to reality, an unknown amount of time had passed before Chial opened his eyes again. The first thing he saw was the silhouette of little HWA. Seeing the protagonist wake up, she poked her head in and asked, "Oh, you're awake?" Chial looked at her with tired eyes and asked tentatively, "Is that HWA?" His blunt way of speaking made the girl furious. "You brat, you dare call your big sister by her name? I'll let it slide because you're in pain. How's your body?" Hearing the reminder, Chial quickly closed his eyes to concentrate on checking his condition, thinking, "Even though my musculoskeletal system is severely damaged, my mana level has surged astronomically. Could I have actually absorbed the purple cloud stone nectar?" Thinking this, Chial hid his surprise and only listed the injuries he had sustained. "A few mana circuits are broken, internal organs are a bit shuffled, bones are strained, and there are a few muscle tears. It's not that serious." Chial's voice was completely calm, while HWA stared at him with wide eyes. Her face turned purple with rage as she screamed, "What? That's not serious. Did you get hit in the head too hard?" Chial looked at HWA with a bit of guilt. Originally, the purple cloud stone nectar was what Lee HWA was intended to get. It was an incredible elixir that strengthens the constitution, increases mana, and grants immunity to poison and curses. "It really was what I decided to take on Red Green Island, but I do feel a little guilty." Thinking that, Chial suddenly sat up as if nothing was wrong and asked, "Wait, why are you here?" Before HWA could answer, a shout rang out from the distance. "Little brother!" It was his elder brother Myeonjung running toward them. Myeonjung quickly produced a healing potion and spoke hurriedly to Chial. "Are you okay? First, let me heal you with mana. I brought healing water too." Looking at his frantic state, Chial gave a strained smile and waved him off. "There's no need for mana healing, but I'll take the healing water." With that, he took the potion and drank it down without stopping. From Myeonjung's perspective, seeing his younger brother so badly injured made his heart ache. After a few seconds of silence, he looked at HWA and said softly, "Sister HWA, could you step out for a moment?" HWA understood they had private things to discuss and didn't want to linger. She nodded in agreement. "Yes, I understand." Once HWA had left, Myeonjung lowered his voice. "If you had died, I would have wiped every organization related to that beast tamer from the face of the earth, no matter how powerful they are. As a member of the Lee clan, what you demonstrated was the epitome of a martial artist. But as your older brother, I cannot view it positively. It was reckless." His voice was full of reproach but also deep concern. This touched Chial. His face reddened and he scratched his head. "I didn't anticipate the mountain turtle head appearing. I'm sorry, brother. If I had known it was there, I certainly would have waited." Seeing his apologetic demeanor, Myeonjung sighed. "It's good that you know the difference between recklessness and confidence." Putting that aside, Chial asked, "Big brother, since I dealt with the beast tamer, the information regarding him belongs to me." Chial spoke while reaching his hand forward, an action that gave Myeonjung a headache. "I knew you'd say that. That beast tamer was once a quasi-rank 5 practitioner from the Japanese Onmyoryo. It seems he was expelled for trying to master forbidden arts. Whoever is behind this provided high-level talismans and artifacts, activating them while the mountain turtle head slept. They wanted to make it look like a monster attack." Back to Chial, he frowned and pondered for a bit before asking, "So you still haven't found the mastermind?" Myeonjung shook his head. "He's in a near-death state, so it's hard to extract information immediately." An idea suddenly flashed through Chial's mind and he spoke hurriedly. "So this wasn't the main goal they had in targeting you. They wanted to damage your reputation by making everyone believe you failed to detect the intruder and reacted too slowly." Chial's explanation seemed to enlighten Myeonjung. That's exactly it. It seems I can't just keep pretending not to know anything." Myeonjung sighed and Chial asked with concern, "Are you okay, brother?" Myeonjung patted Chial's head and reassured him, "I'm fine. My reputation might take a small hit, but it's nothing significant. I can't be away for long, so I have to head back now. Just as Myeonjung was about to leave, Cheol grabbed his hand and said with a dead serious face, "Brother, do you want to make a deal with me? Say that you anticipated the beast tamer's infiltration and ordered me to handle it in advance, and I'll testify to that. It will make it look like you prepared for something that even clan intelligence missed." Myeonjung quickly guessed Cheol's true motive and asked, "You'd rather not testify to the truth, right?" Cheol stood up and answered, "If people believe I did this alone, they'll only become more guarded and suspicious of me." "Is that why you're calling this a trade?" "Yes, a trade is when both parties exchange what they need. So, what do you want?" Myeonjung asked, and Cheol stated his request clearly. "Give me the right to enter the scripture pavilion. 3 days will be enough." He reached out his hand and Myeonjung gripped it, teasingly saying, "You arrogant brat, fine, thank you." His voice was full of gratitude. However, Cheol shook his head. "There's no need for thanks, this is just a transaction." Myeonjung gently patted Cheol's shoulder and whispered, "Even if I hadn't agreed, you would have found a way to manage this, wouldn't you?" At that moment, Myeonjung's phone rang incessantly. "It seems the Azure Sword Squad is calling you. You really do have to go now." Myeonjung tossed the infinite dagger back to Cheol. He threw the infinite dagger back and winked. "I'll keep this a secret for you." With that, he left quickly. Looking at his brothers retreating back, Cheol laughed excitedly. Haha, as expected, he's still not easy to deal with. After Myeonjung had gone, little HWA returned and asked, "It seems the conversation went well. So, which trial gate are you going to challenge? It's been 3 weeks, it should be open by now," she asked curiously. However, Cheol didn't answer and instead asked back, "What about you? Where will you take your trial?" "Hey, I asked first," HWA snapped while Cheol shrugged. "If you want to know, answer first." Having no choice, HWA proudly shared her intention. "Where am I taking my trial? What else could it be but the hardest challenge, the Gate of Obsession?" "So what about you?" Cheol answered that he would take the trial at the Gate of Combat. This left HWA looking stunned. "Huh, such a place exists. Don't tell me that's one of the gates on the periphery." Cheol nodded calmly. "Yes, it is in the peripheral area." For some reason, Hwa's face showed a hint of disappointment. She spoke mockingly. "How disappointing. It seems I misjudged you. You chose a peripheral gate? Then there's nothing more to say. I thought you were a rival. Honestly, I used to think you were better than me." Just like that, HWA left in her disappointment. Seeing her attitude, Cheol wasn't surprised at all. He thought, since everyone assumes location determines the difficulty of a gate, they probably think I chose the peripheral gate because it's easier. Whatever, let them think what they want. Time passed quickly. It was now dawn and Cheol was still wandering through the forest searching for something. "I don't remember exactly, but it should be here." Before my regression, this was the cave I accidentally discovered, and it's also where I will complete the second challenge of the Naming ceremony, the Gate of Combat. As he thought this, he pushed aside the vegetation in front of him, and there before his eyes was a pitch-black cave. Next, the protagonist prepared a torch and carefully entered. As he walked, he thought, at a glance, it just looks like an ordinary wall. But of course, it won't be that simple. Thinking that, he drew his sword and struck the wall repeatedly. Fragments of stone began to fall away, revealing an iron door standing tall behind them. Seeing this, a spark of joy appeared in Cheol's eyes. Found it. Next, Cheol used the infinite dagger to cut deeply into his palm. He then used the blood flowing from his hand and splashed it directly against the door. The blood, containing mana energy, emitted a brilliant light the moment it hit the iron door, acting like a switch to activate the gate. The door shuddered once and then slowly swung open to both sides, revealing a vast hall inside with a sword embedded deep into a wooden pedestal. The familiar scene brought back memories as Cheol quickly stepped inside. Next, he walked to the wooden pedestal, dripped blood into the basin-shaped indentation on it, and whispered, "A descendant of the Lee clan requests to be tested by the ancestors' trial. Please grant permission." As his words echoed, a blue light shaped like a wisp of smoke rose from the indentation. The content of the Gate of Combat challenge was only one thing: to defeat yourself. From Cheol's perspective, the blue light transformed into a figure that looked exactly like him. Cheol was already very familiar with this test and was no longer surprised. In this trial, the number of attempts was unlimited, but one could not leave before achieving victory, even if they gave up. "Well then, let's begin." As he thought this, he slowly drew his sword. However, before he could even launch an attack, a flash of light swept across his neck, causing the protagonist's small head to immediately leave his shoulders. "What the hell happened?" Chial uttered blankly. The last thing he saw was the image of the fake Chial standing right beside him. After an unknown amount of time, the protagonist finally calmed down. He hurriedly touched his neck and tried swallowing a few times. Sweat poured down his young face. He thought, just now my head was definitely cut off, right? The illusions in the challenge gate can't actually kill me. But the sensation is annoyingly real. At this level, an ordinary person would probably go insane. Furthermore, can I actually do that? The illusion of the gate of combat allows me to use my power perfectly, meaning I'm currently not utilizing my full potential. If I could fully tap into it, I would have blocked that strike just now. Alright, let's try again, Chial reminded himself. His hand gripped the sword tightly, his eyes filled with unwavering determination. But as time passed, on the third attempt, Chial was run through the stomach by the fake Chial and met his end. On the fifth attempt, he successfully blocked the sword, but immediately after, his neck was snapped, and he died. By the 10th time, the outcome was still his head being severed from his neck. And so it continued. The 13th time, the 18th, the 23rd, Chial began to lose count of how many times he had perished in this trial. Just how many more times is it going to take? He thought to himself. Inside the silent space, two identical figures constantly clashed with near-identical sword paths, a piercing sound echoing every time their blades met. After being pushed back, Chial gasped for air, his mind racing. Is this the 75th time, or perhaps the 80th? But now, I finally understand a little. The greatest power I possess is freedom, an overwhelming adaptability, an unpredictable fighting style. This time I will definitely make it. With that thought in mind, Chial began to transform his longsword into an axe and lunged forward once more. Thus, the two figures continued to exchange affectionate blows, constantly switching weapons as they fought, shifting to the perspective of the fake Chial. After their axes collided, he immediately leaped backward to maintain his distance. Then the fake Chial switched his weapon from an axe to a longsword, and lunged forward to attack once again. The sword in his hand easily pierced through Chial's abdomen. However, this was exactly what the protagonist wanted. Right at that moment, Chial reached out and gripped the fake Chial's wrist tightly, preventing him from withdrawing the sword. "You fool, I left that opening on purpose." With those words, he immediately used his ultimate technique, Demon Slash, cleaving the fake Chial into two pieces in an instant. His attack was so powerful that it tore up the ground behind the target. On the other side, the fake Chial's body slowly began to fade away, but at the same time, a smile spread across his face. A smile that looked as if he were deeply satisfied with Chial's performance. Switching to Chial's perspective, he watched the fake Chial's body dissolve into a blue light and thought pensively. If one passes the trial of the gate, the Li bloodline releases hidden energy. In my past life, my ability was only the most common type, fortification. But in this life, what will it be? At that moment, according to Chial's gaze, blue energy sources began to hover in the air. A moment later, they entered his body, awakening the power hidden within his bloodline. Immediately, a golden aura enveloped him. "This power is..." Chial murmured. In a different scene, outside the large iron gates, the core members of the clan stood waiting, whispering amongst themselves, while Uncle Yiheng let out a weary sigh. "Sigh, I thought he'd be well-behaved this time. That annoying brat. Everyone else has a peaceful naming ceremony, yet he causes nothing but trouble." No sooner had he finished speaking than someone in the group shouted, "The mana density is changing. It's opening!" Hearing this, Yiheng hurriedly turned his eyes toward the door. Sure enough, the door swung wide and Chial's silhouette emerged, walking sluggishly outward. His footsteps became unsteady, and then he collapsed forward. Fortunately, Yiheng reacted quickly, rushing to catch his body and asking anxiously, "Li Young, are you all right? Wake up." Responding to his uncle's concern, Chial looked up with a face so gaunt it looked like he hadn't eaten in half a month. His stomach rumbled incessantly, demanding fuel. "Hungry, so hungry, water," he managed to mumble before his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Witnessing this scene, Yiheng trembled with frustration. "This brat," the uncle shouted. Time passed quickly and the scene shifted to Chial's private courtyard. By now, the protagonist had returned to his home. The maid, Gawa, burst into tears of joy upon seeing him unharmed. "Young master, do you have any idea how worried I was? First the beast tamer, then Jiusu Mountain, and then that ancient trial set by the ancestors," she sobbed while hugging Chial tightly. Seeing this, Chial could only give a forced smile. "Nanny, I'm too dirty. I've been living outdoors for nearly a month. Ignoring his words, Gawa refused to let go until she had inspected him thoroughly, nodding only when she was sure he didn't have a single scratch. At first, I planned to scold you severely, but never mind. Welcome home, young master. I have prepared bathwater. After you finish bathing, I will serve your meal. Chiol nodded, but then remembering his youngest aunt Jeonghwa, he asked, Nanny, what about my aunt? I thought she would be the first one to come running. At this, Gawa's footsteps abruptly stopped. Her voice wavered, unsure of how to explain. This made Chiol curious. He wondered what had happened during his absence. Time passed, shifting the scene to a certain building. Currently, Jeonghwa was cheerfully greeting her nephew through the iron bars of a cell. Has my dear nephew arrived? Looking at her nonchalant attitude while being imprisoned, Chiol simply rubbed his face in pained disbelief and asked, What on earth did you do? In front of him, Jeonghwa didn't explain but kept smiling. Sorry about that, but it's good to see you safe. But how did your mana capacity surge like that? You haven't even digested all the energy in your body yet. Sit down. I'll work with you. Without letting her finish, Chiol's face turned serious. However, Jeonghwa just scratched her head with an apologetic laugh. Haha, it's okay, it's okay. Shifting to Jeonghwa's perspective, she felt a bit touched seeing Chiol worry so much about her. She hadn't expected him to go this far for her. The reason she was locked up here was that she had caused a massive scene in the control room with the elders and the eldest brother. Thinking of this, she tapped her fingers together and stammered, Sorry, dear nephew. I thought they had done something strange to you, so I couldn't control my temper. I just felt incredibly angry at the thought of never seeing you again. At this, her throat seemed to tighten. She began to clutch her own neck to illustrate the feeling. While Chiol himself couldn't help but be surprised. To be honest, he hadn't fully trusted his youngest aunt before, but somewhere along the way, he had started to see her as part of the family. Now he finally accepted it. With this thought, Chiol's heart felt lighter. He reassured his aunt, I will get you out soon, please wait just a bit longer. Seeing this, Jeonghwa inside the cell hurriedly said, how could you do that? It's fine, don't overdo it. Hearing this, Chiol shook his head and explained, I won't do anything, you'll be released soon enough regardless. See you next time. With that, he quickly left the prison area. Time passed, shifting the scene to an airport. By now, all the core members of the Lee clan were present and waiting. They whispered among themselves. All because the person disembarking from the plane was the current head of the clan, Lee Tishan. Seeing him appear, Lady Baekhyun hurriedly spoke up. You've arrived? Tishan responded with a nod. I've kept you all waiting. Lady Baekhyun bowed, her voice respectful. It is no trouble. The hot springs are ready. Please bathe comfortably and then have your meal. Within the group, Chiol and little Hwa were also present. He stole a glance at his father and thought silently. After the naming ceremony incident, I thought I had grown quite a bit, but the distance between me and father, just how far is it? I still can't even measure it. At that moment, Tishan noticed his gaze. For a split second, their eyes met. However, Tishan immediately looked away and muttered, I have always said that those who do not know how to struggle are unnecessary for the clan. But among these, there is only one child who carries the desire to defeat me. His casual remark startled everyone around them, causing them to gossip. Who was he talking to? Is it the eldest brother? For Chiol, he naturally understood that these words were meant for him. The old man's sharp intuition made him let out a weary sigh. I tried so hard to suppress my emotions, yet he still read me. He asked himself internally. Time passed, shifting the scene to the Lee clan's grand banquet hall. To welcome Tishan back from his long journey, a party of this scale was only natural. As for Chiol, because of his status as an illegitimate son, even though he attended, he simply stood quietly in a corner, evaluating the people around him. Since this was a rare event for the Lee clan, the scale of this banquet was far grander than other naming ceremonies. That person is the youngest Magic Tower master ever known. And this one is the director of the Onmyorio. No, currently he's still the deputy director. Chiol thought to himself. Many familiar faces he used to see in newspapers appeared at this ceremony, but before he could think further, Butler Choi approached and reminded him, Pardon me, young master, the clan leader requests your presence. Hearing this, Chiol narrowed his eyes and asked, Father is calling for me. Butler Choi nodded and guided him, Yes, please come this way. Hearing this, Chiol quickly followed him. As he walked, he couldn't help but wonder about the reason Tishan wanted to see him. Why call me privately? I hope it's nothing serious. Before long, he was brought to the meeting place. Tishan looked at his son's back. Chial hurriedly bowed and said, "Why did you call for me, father?" As he looked up, he was somewhat shocked to see his eldest brother, Myeonjung, also present. His presence made the protagonist suspect that this had something to do with the incident where the mage Nishiyama had infiltrated Red Blue Island. Opposite him, Tishan didn't keep him wondering for long and spoke. "I think you know why I have summoned you. I want to hear about the event that occurred during this naming ceremony. According to Myeong-young, you discovered an outsider and captured him. This was your plan, wasn't it?" To Chial, Tishan's words carried a heavy pressure, making his face break out in a sweat. "Just as I thought, so father already knows." Chial thought to himself, then nodded and replied, "Yes, that is correct. It was I who proposed the deal to the eldest brother. The condition was that I would have access to the Great Library for 3 days in exchange for helping him avoid the scrutiny of public opinion this time." Tishan's stern voice responded to Chial, "Considering your merit in this instance, I will overlook the fact that you filed a false report. But there will not be a next time." "Yes, I understand," the protagonist said with a bow. Next, Tishan glanced at his eldest son and reminded him, "Myeong-young, you will receive an appropriate punishment later. Organizing this banquet is your current duty. Return to your work." To this, Myeong-young showed no resentment and immediately accepted. "Yes, I will do so." Having spoken, he flashed a smile at Chial and quickly departed. While Chial wondered if his eldest brother would be all right after the punishment from their father, he set the matter aside for now. After everyone left, Tishan continued to Chial, "We will set aside the matter of the false report. The credit for this belongs to you. You will receive the reward Myeong-young promised. Finally, since you discovered the secret trial of the match, I shall grant you a reward." Hearing this, Chial's eyes flashed with surprise. Then he stated his request, a request the author intentionally kept hidden. Time passed quickly and the naming ceremony moved to its main stage as Tishan approached the most important objective of the day. He spoke to the assembled crowd. "I thank all the guests who have traveled here. I hope our 2 children, the protagonists of today's party, will be blessed on the path ahead. Now I shall proceed with the naming rite. HWA, step forward. You were chosen by the Holy Sword and always shine like the sun to those around you. Always maintain this brilliant path. I grant you the name Seoyeon, meaning forever radiant." As his words fell, a scroll abruptly opened before Seoyeon. Inside was written her new name. This made the little girl very happy. Her eyes grew bright as she hurriedly replied, "I thank you." Next, Tishan turned his gaze toward Chial. "Next, Young, step forward." When he was called up, the atmosphere of the banquet seemed to turn somber. Everyone fell silent, a stark contrast to the attitude shown towards Seoyeon moments ago. Chial didn't find this strange. Their reaction was no different from the previous selection rite, but it's fine, he reminded himself. Meanwhile, Tishan's voice continued, "You are hard and sharp, yet simultaneously flexible and unyielding. Like a blacksmith gathering steel from 4 corners to forge a single block, you have forged yourself. I cannot find a more fitting word to describe you, so I shall name you Chial." As he spoke, he snapped his fingers as a signal. Immediately, the scroll bearing the name Chial spread out before him. Looking at the name, a thought occurred to Chial. Previously, I was named with the meaning "live tough like steel." But now that meaning has changed. Until I reach the peak of the Lee clan, I will not stop. My name is Lee Chial. Thinking this, he said excitedly, "I thank you." Time passed until the next day, shifting the scene to the Lee clan's isolation ward. Currently, Jeonghwa inside the room was practically going insane. She tore at her hair, gripped the iron bars with both hands, and roared like a wild beast wanting to get out. So suffocating, so annoying, I couldn't even witness the kid's naming ceremony. He said he'd let me out, so why is it taking so long? Outside, the 2 guards heard her complaints and their faces turned purple with a headache. She cursed incessantly, making them suffer through the ordeal. At that moment, a phone call came through. While Jeonghwa was sitting there biting her sleeve in frustration, one of the guards entered, opened the door, and said, "You are free to leave. As for the disciplinary measures, there will be an announcement later. For now, you are permitted to leave the isolation area." To celebrate her release, she kicked the door wide open, making the guard behind her fly into a rage. "Hey, stop kicking things." Then, before she could take more than a few steps, a familiar voice rang out. "Wait, hold on." Hearing this, Jeonghwa hurriedly turned toward the source of the call. And sure enough, she saw her nephew Chial standing there leaning against the wall. "Oh brat, is it possible that you actually got me out?" Jeonghwa said in shock. Chiol nodded in admission. Yes, that's right. This made Jeonghwa jump in surprise. She asked blankly, how on earth? Without letting her finish, Chiol took out a piece of paper and tossed it to her. What's this? Jeonghwa asked, but Chiol didn't explain much, only saying cryptically, you owe me a favor. Immediately, Jeonghwa widened her eyes to read what was written on the paper. Appoint Lee Jeonghwa to the rank of elder and assign her as the master of the ninth son, Lee Chiol. Reading this, her eyes bulged out like a cow's, unable to believe what she was seeing. Only Chiol remained cheerful, saying, from now on, I look forward to your guidance, master. He spoke while excitedly reaching his hand forward. Time passed quickly. Currently, Chiol was dressed in a blue martial arts uniform while the maid Gawa stood beside him, sniffling back tears as she murmured, it starts today, doesn't it? Chiol responded with a nod. Yes, now is the true beginning. So the young master is already 13 years old. She whispered to herself. Meanwhile, Chiol, after finishing his preparations, nodded and said, well then, I'm off. 3 years had passed since the naming ceremony, and today his life as a new student officially began. Shifting the scene to the clan's martial arts field. When children reach the appropriate age, they are all sent here for training. Chiol's presence made them curious and they began to whisper. Isn't that the illegitimate son? That's right, that's the ninth child, Lee Chiol. I heard he caused quite a stir at the selection rite and naming ceremony. It was probably just luck. He is an illegitimate child after all. Achieving such results in the naming ceremony through luck alone is difficult. Right, I'm curious too. The constant curious murmurs made Chiol incredibly annoyed. Illegitimate son, listening to this is giving me a headache. He let out a sigh before being distracted by other voices. Oh, it's the 8th young lady. As expected of a direct descendant, her aura is completely different. Looking at everyone's reaction to Seoyeon, Chiol could only smile. Their reaction is quite different compared to mine. He silently observed Seoyeon. Meanwhile, when Seoyeon caught Chiol's eye, her body suddenly froze. She walked mechanically toward Chiol and spoke. Ah, hello, Chiol responded with a nod. Yeah, long time no see. Next, Seoyeon scratched her cheek sheepishly and stammered. About that, you aren't holding a grudge about the naming ceremony, are you? The thing about me saying I was disappointed. Her words made Chiol recall a bit of the memory from Red Blue Island. Of course, he didn't care about those words at all. If Seoyeon hadn't mentioned it, he would have forgotten it long ago. It's fine, I don't mind, Chiol said with a sigh which made Seoyeon's face turn joyful. Really? Good, you're a bit petty, aren't you? She said cheerfully, unaware that Chiol's face had darkened behind her. He growled, do you want me to explain exactly how petty I can be? Ignoring his comment, Seoyeon suddenly remembered something and asked excitedly, I heard you're studying under the youngest aunt and even got into the great library. For Chiol. Before he could even answer, the shout of an instructor rang out from the front. Attention everyone, we will now proceed with class assignments. New students whose names are called gather in rows before the instructors. The man's words made the kids below feel a bit of pressure because which class they were assigned to would largely determine their future academic results. What should I do? I'm starting to get nervous. If I get put in a bad class, I'm finished. They spoke while sweating profusely. As for Chiol, he could understand this feeling because he had already experienced it once. The reaction was understandable. The training period at the academy is 3 years, so class assignment is very important. There are 5 classes per year level. More elite students are placed in higher classes. On the opposite side, an instructor handed a slip of paper to Seoyeon and said, Congratulations, young lady Lee Seoyeon, Class 1, my congratulations. Thank you. Chiol wasn't surprised by this. Next, the instructor turned to look at Chiol and continued, next is young master Lee Chiol. At that, the protagonist stepped forward and received his assignment slip. The result made him too tired to even speak, his annoyance clearly visible. Honestly, I knew it would be like this, but I didn't expect them to be this blatant. Class 5, also known as the trash bin, the gathering place for those who failed or were discarded. Class assignments for direct descendants are based on the naming ceremony evaluation. And the evaluation committee is controlled by the Council of Elders and Lady Baekhyun. They think they've put me at a disadvantage, but on the contrary, this is better for me. I won't have to waste as much effort. As he thought this, a man stood up to guide him. Young Master Li Chial, Class 5 this way. Seeing this, Chial nodded and tucked the paper into his shirt. At the same time, he felt Sioyon's scrutinizing gaze staring at him from behind. She was feeling angry that Chial had no reaction to being placed in Class 5. Looking at her lioness-like demeanor, Chial was slightly startled. Whoa, look at that face. I can tell just by looking that if I don't do something, this girl will take matters into her own hands. Even though I'm perfectly fine with it. Thinking that, he waved her off to tell her she didn't need to say anything and quickly moved along. Around him, several other children assigned to Class 5 felt as if the world were collapsing before their eyes. Damn it, Class 5, will I even be able to graduate? What am I going to tell my father? I can't be in Class 5, the people back home will laugh me to death. As for Chial, looking at the attitude of the children beside him, he felt a bit irritated. How disappointing. Why do students of the Li clan have an attitude like this? Just then, a greeting rang out beside him, pulling him out of his thoughts. You're the youngest master of the main family, right? As I thought, I really wanted to greet you. My name is Kim Han, the son of a small forge contracted by the Li clan. It is an honor to study with the young master. Shifting to Chial's perspective, seeing a kid come up to greet him like this made him a bit surprised. Kim Han, I have no memory of him from my previous life. Thinking that, Chial asked, but why me? Kim Han scratched his head and replied, because the young master is a prominent figure. I've always seen you as an idol. His sincere words made Chial let out a sigh before continuing. Kim Han, is it? What do you think about being placed in Class 5? The sudden question made Kim Han's face freeze for a moment. But then, he said cheerfully, my current strength is probably just at that level. But who knows what it will be like in the future? He spoke with a face full of determination. As for Chial, hearing this, he gave a slight smile and a nod. You've passed. The scene shifts to the Class 5 martial arts hall. After the freshmen arrive, the upperclassmen greet them with warm smiles. A pleasure to meet you, freshmen. We're counting on you, so let's all work hard together. That's right, if there's anything you don't know, feel free to ask anytime. Their enthusiasm makes the young boys look at one another with curious eyes. Then the instructor claps his hands to draw the group's attention. All right, now that greetings are over, everyone focus here. My name is Lee Young-ho and I am the instructor in charge of Class 5. Today, since a new batch of freshmen has joined us, there will be no formal lesson, just a brief introduction. Young-ho speaks with a beaming face and he is a figure quite familiar to Chial from his past life. A fragment of memory regarding this instructor flashes through his mind. He looks just as full of passion and determination as before. In my past life, he even gave me private tutoring because I couldn't keep up with the others. Unaware of Chial's thoughts, Young-ho turns to the long-haired student beside him. All right, that's the end of the introduction. In-ha, you take over and guide the freshmen through the rest. Yes, instructor. In-ha responds with a smile and turns to introduce himself to the hothouse flowers. Greetings, freshmen. Though it's a bit embarrassing since I've been held back for 2 consecutive years, I'm still serving as the second-year class president. You've been standing for a while, so you must be tired, right? If you want to sit, go ahead. Now we're going to elect a class president. Even as students, there are times we are sent into real combat, so a class president is much like the captain of a martial arts squad. Unlike the instructor, who is only responsible for training and teaching according to the curriculum, the class president can be seen as the person in charge of everything else regarding the class. Hearing this, a boy in the crowd raises his hand. So, how is the class president chosen? The question surprises In-ha slightly and he explains, I forgot to mention, I'm not sure how other classes do it, but here we hold a light sparring session and then vote for the class president. Great, so let's start sparring now. Since this is a test of skill, mana usage is prohibited. There will be rest periods between matches. Before he can finish his sentence, Chial's cold voice suddenly rings out. Are you actually serious? His voice carries a hint of questioning that makes In-ha panic slightly. He asks back, Young Master Li Chial, is there something you're dissatisfied with? In response, Chial walks toward the weapon rack, picks up a wooden sword and proceeds to give them all a wake-up call. Everything you're doing and everything you've said. Wake up, this is the Li clan. If you want to play student games, don't come to this academy, go to a normal school in the safe zone. Behind him, In-ha quickly retorts, your words are a bit much, we just want to settle this peacefully. Back to Chial's perspective. Hearing this, he has no desire to waste more words on these socially inexperienced kids. He slams the wooden sword hard onto the stone floor and challenges the entire lot. I suppose you don't understand when I speak like this, do you? Come at me one by one. From now on, I'll fight all of you. Time passes quickly and Chial is now huffing like an ox from exhaustion. He uses the sword to prop himself up on the ground, helping him stand firm, while all around him numerous freshmen are groaning in pain. Meanwhile, Inha, who has witnessed everything from start to finish, can hardly believe his eyes. Unbelievable. How many people has he taken down by himself? Inha wonders to himself before Chial turns to look at him and says, "Choi Inha, call the next person." Chial stares intently at Inha with a sharp gaze. This makes the boy a bit nervous and he swallows hard. "That pressure is terrifying," Inha mutters, then replies, "This is the final match." At this, Chial nods and continues, "Is that so? Then come, Choi Inha." Just like that, the match between the two officially begins. After only a single clash with Chial's sword, Inha's teeth are clenched tight. Countless thoughts race through his head. Why is he taking it this far? A match with no reward, no value. This is just a practice match in the academy. I can't even find the opening to strike seriously. No, actually, I know very well. I used to be like that too. No matter what, I wanted to win. I also thought compromise was just another way of living. Don't think that accepting reality and maturing is the right thing to do. But I want to win. I want to win so badly it's driving me crazy. Inha screams internally, performing a spin to increase the force of his swing. Opposite him, Chial makes a similar swinging motion, yet he is still a step faster. "I win." With those words, Chial knocks the wooden sword out of Inha's hand, leaving the boy clutching his wrist and falling to his knees with a cry of pain. Seeing this, Chial lets out a sigh and ends the match. "Phew, take him to the infirmary." The moment he speaks, Inha suddenly shouts, "It's not over yet." "It's not over." As he speaks, he quickly picks up the wooden sword and lunges to attack once more. However, Chial blocks this hurried attack with extreme ease. The protagonist's eyes narrow as he begins to evaluate. A left-handed strike, using his left hand because the right is injured. The look in his eyes is completely different from before. Thinking this, Chial puts force into his sword, knocking Inha's arm backward. Next, he takes a step forward and swings his sword like a baseball bat, striking Inha square in the stomach, making the young teenager retch from the sheer pain and fall onto his back. His body curls up like a small shrimp, officially losing his fighting strength. "Take him away," Chial instructs, and two other freshmen hurriedly run over to help Inha to the infirmary. During this time, Chial walks toward the group of freshmen and declares, "I have lived every second like an hour, every hour like a year. Who doesn't know that living comfortably is easier? But if you don't fight for your life every single minute, you will end up losing everything. That's why, even when I breathe, I am fighting myself and everything around me." Have you ever lived like that? That is what struggle truly means. As Chial speaks, he clenches his fist and glares, his appearance looking incredibly intimidating. Time passes quickly, and after the class president decision is finalized, Young-ho returns. He has learned of everything and can't help but reproach Chial. "You went a bit too far. 4 people have broken bones and 3 have internal injuries." On his end, Chial sits down to rest and replies without a hint of regret, even questioning the instructor back. If they want to survive in the Lee clan, they must at least know how to laugh in the face of such injuries. Young-ho retorts, "Those kids all have their reasons." However, before he can finish, Chial interrupts. "Instructor Lee Young-ho, even the students have understood. Do I really have to explain it to the instructor as well? People like you are rare in the Lee clan. You are a good man. But they are students of the Lee clan. If they go down the wrong path, then even if you have to play the villain, you should be the one to pull them back. Do your duty properly." Chial's voice makes Young-ho's body shudder, his hands clenching into fists. Time passes quickly until the next day. Back at Chial's position, although he easily overwhelmed those hothouse freshmen, it doesn't mean he's unscathed. As he walks, he rotates his shoulder joint and complains, "Good grief, my whole body is aching. I pushed myself a bit too hard yesterday." Reaching this point, he looks at the group of freshmen, their faces covered in bruises, standing in a neat line as if they had arrived early. This makes Chial somewhat satisfied. Though some show hostility or discomfort, none are hiding or turning away. If they were still as terrified as yesterday, there truly would be no hope. But this doesn't look too bad. With that, he slowly walks past the crowd. But just then, our protagonist hears a few whispered voices. "Here he comes, that trash." At the same time, Kim Han's voice calls out from behind, "Young master, you've arrived." Hearing the familiar voice, Chial turns to reply, "You're here early." Kim Han scratches his head and says, "Yes, I was afraid I performed too poorly in front of everyone yesterday." At this, Chial offers a word of comfort. "We're still just students, being unskilled is only natural." To this, Kim Han can only give an awkward smile. Before proposing, "Young master, if you don't mind, could I ask you a question?" Chial nods easily, "Sure, ask away." At this moment, Kim Han's eyes show a look of determination. He says, "What should I do? What do I have to do to become strong like you?" To his question, Chial thinks, "I don't even have enough time for my own training. How could I have time to teach others?" However, he still offers a hint to the young teenager. "I'll say first that I'm not yet at a level to teach anyone, but you have very good eyes or perhaps a sharp intuition. Yesterday, you dodged my attacks 3 times in a row. Take advantage of that. I think you're better suited for technique than raw power. If you bet your life on hunting what you have, you will become different one day." Chial's sincere observation leaves Kim Han looking dazed, and he replies naively, Thank you." At that moment, Inha greets the protagonist, "Greetings, young master." Hearing this, Chial glances back at the boy's bandaged arm and shakes his head. "You look pathetic. I suppose you won't be able to train in that state?" Inha can't help but burst out laughing. "Haha, if I decided to rest, would you even leave me be? You'd probably just say those things about fighting and call me a coward, wouldn't you? I just don't want to hear those words anymore, so I came out." He speaks irritably and quickly walks past Chial. Yet despite Inha's grumpy attitude, Chial smiles. He thinks to himself, he's certainly changed. Next, the instructor Young-ho arrives and gathers everyone before him. "Assemble, today 4 people are on sick leave and 5 are absent without reason. That leaves 11 of us, I see." As he speaks, he observes all the students. Every single one is covered in bruises, making Young-ho worry for them. Everyone looks exhausted. Furthermore, the atmosphere is different. Just because there's one predator, these students who were so relaxed before are now this tense. Thinking this, and as if coming to a decision, he clenches his fist and speaks. "We were supposed to have a basic physical fitness test today, but considering the current situation, I'm changing the plan. Right now, we begin the stamina test." Time passes and Young-ho's voice rings out once more. "From now on, free training is under the charge of the class president." Now, whatever test Young-ho gave these kids, none of them have the strength to stand firm anymore. Every single one is breathing like a plow horse. Not to mention them, even Chial feels aches all over his body. He sighs internally, "Taking 10 hours for a stamina test? Even I'm a bit tired." But I can't stop here, Chial reminds himself. Behind him, while resting, the freshmen look at one another and gossip. "Hey, the instructor seems a bit unusual today, right?" someone asks, and the person beside them replies instantly, "It's because of the match yesterday, so many were injured. Normally he would have given us a break." Ignoring their chatter, Chial steps forward and announces, "Attention, there's no need for further introductions. I am Lee Chial, your class president. As Choi and Ha said yesterday, the class president has the authority to decide everything outside of the instructor's orders. My training schedule will be extremely harsh. Those who can follow, follow. Those who can't, I have no intention of dragging along. If you're unhappy with me, feel free to challenge me. If you land just one hit, I'll step down as class president." "Alright, enough talk, start immediately, fight the person next to you." Just like that, once again the students who had barely managed to rest have to launch into affectionate punches at one another. After a while, Chial observes the results. Looking at those still standing firm before him, he thinks, 6 people left in the end, everyone else gave up halfway. Thinking this, he decides to spare these weaklings for now and speaks up, "Alright, that's enough for today, dismissed, good work." Having said that, he quickly turns and leaves. As soon as he vanishes, a few jealous students begin to curse, "That damn bastard, I'm suffering like this because of him. I really can't stand that brat, what's the point of this? I have no intention of listening to that kind of talk." Elsewhere, Kim Han hears these mocking voices and shouts, "Enough." To be honest, I'm bitter too, but even when he's exhausted, we couldn't land a single hit on him. The students ignore his words and turn to ask Inha's opinion. "Hey Inha, what do you think? Were we having that much fun last year, or do you also think?" Before they can finish, Inha interrupts, "Yeah, so much fun we got held back. If I don't change this time, I'll truly live like a failure. Even if my arms and legs are broken, I want to try once. Truly, I really want to. You guys know it too, that bastard. I mean, you understand what he's trying to do, right? I'm going to try fighting this time. It might really be the last chance. So wake up, don't offer useless resistance or pretend you don't know. After speaking, Inha turns and leaves, leaving the students behind, silent after hearing his words. The scene shifts to Jeonghwa's office, where Chial is currently present. His entire body is hooked up to numerous wires to measure certain parameters. He begins concentrating mana in his palm, creating a blue flame that blazes intensely. Seeing this, Jeonghwa says with difficulty, "Stop, that's enough, another failure. Every time we try to create an aura, its form collapses. I didn't expect this issue to appear after reaching the 3-star level. If only there were records of how the ancients used mana." Her voice is full of frustration. Meanwhile, Chial pulls the massive wires off his body, silently observing the ring on his finger and thinking, "If it's Infinite's memory, it might be possible, but I still haven't read the next part." Anyway, the trip to the scripture pavilion yielded unexpected results. There, Chial found a document talking about the weapon Infinite. It said the item was shrouded in black energy, terrifying monsters. Even the kingdom's brave generals were defeated. Countless heroes sealed it at North Myriad Ghost Mountain. The king granted lands to honor that feat. The heroes, grateful for the king's virtue, turned it into a sword and named it Infinite. Finding information on Infinite was a massive gain. At this thought, Chial's hand instinctively tightens. Meanwhile, Jeonghwa is only annoyed for 3 seconds before returning to her usual cheerful face. "Anyway, you've touched upon aura. Reaching the 3-star realm on your own is truly impressive. The current deadlock will be resolved soon. Actually, you've nearly perfected the amplification and transformation techniques." Thinking this, Chial nods and offers his thanks. "Yes, thank you, Aunt, for teaching me every time." Speaking of which, Aunt, what do we learn next after reaching the 3-star realm? To explain, Jeonghwa says, "You'll learn to use hard qigong and aura skills, but mastering them will take a lot of time." Then, as if remembering something, she asks the protagonist with interest, "By the way, how is the student training going? You look exhausted all the time." Chial replies, "The training is normal." However, his dejected face and heavy breathing can't fool Jeonghwa. She bursts out laughing. "Is that so? If it's difficult, let me lend a hand." Hearing this, Chial's eyes light up and he hurriedly asks, How are you going to help?" Opposite him, Jeonghwa doesn't reveal her plan but beats her chest confidently. "HMPH, you'll know soon enough, just trust me." Time passes quickly until the next day. To help her nephew, Jeonghwa personally comes to his class 5, making Chial give a strained smile. "Haha, I already felt anxious the moment she said trust me." Unaware of Chial's thoughts, the instructor Young-ho happily introduces her. "Today we have a special lecture on mana. Everyone, straighten your uniforms and wait in position. This is Elder Lee Jeonghwa, a researcher for the Lee clan." Everyone applaud. As soon as he finishes, thunderous applause rings out. Meanwhile, the dorky Jeonghwa scratches her head in embarrassment. "Hee, this is so embarrassing. I don't like dragging things out, so let's start the lecture right away." She speaks with a playful wink, quickly takes a piece of chalk and begins presenting today's theoretical lecture. Behind her, seeing her focused demeanor, Chial evaluates. It seems she's enjoying teaching more and more. Time passes and Jeonghwa suddenly claps her hands to get the group's attention. "All right, that's the end of the boring lecture part. From now on is the part that isn't boring. I will pass down an improved version of the iron line technique developed by the Research Institute." Beside her, the instructor Young-ho asks naively, Didn't the lesson just end?" "What are you talking about? The main part starts now. Everyone, sit up straight. I'm only doing this once, so stay focused." With that, she signals for Chial to come forward and help her, leaving the protagonist truly puzzled by what his aunt is thinking. "What's going on?" he asks. Behind him, Jeonghwa smiles and says, "When direct descendants enter the academy, they are usually supported in this way. But you had nothing, so I worked a little harder." Hearing this, Chial is touched and replies, "Thank you, Aunt." Ignoring Chial's state, Jeonghwa continues, "All right, excellent. If the theory holds, your power will double." "Amazing, right?" Chial replies with a long sigh. "Yes, Aunt, you truly are amazing." Over here, Instructor Young-ho also realized an important lesson and called out to the group, "Attention everyone, from now on we'll continue sparring by directly applying the magic taught by the elders. Everyone, find your partners." At his words, the students began pairing up. Seeking revenge against Chial, Inha immediately spoke up to the protagonist, "Young master, be my opponent. I won't be holding back like last time." He spoke with eyes full of determination. Meanwhile, Chial, being the type to never back down from anyone, agreed, "It's an honor to fight you. I'll let you make the first move." With that, the two of them lunged at each other, leaving Jeonghwa watching from the sidelines in sheer delight. "Whoa, my little sprout is quite ruthless, isn't he? He looks just like I did in my younger days." As she thought that, she was suddenly drawn to some whispering from behind. "Honestly, I can't stand that kid. Even if he's a concubine's son and gets discriminated against, he's still totally different from us. A different physique, already unlocking skills, he started from a different finish line altogether." One kid shrugged, while the one next to him chimed in, "Exactly, we try our best, but what does he even know?" From Jeonghwa's perspective, how could she stay silent when her nephew was being badmouthed like that? She immediately spoke up, "Hey, you kids!" At the sound of her voice, the two strangers jumped and stammered, "Gee, great one, haven't you left yet?" Ignoring the question, Jeonghwa looked at them as if staring at dead men and asked coldly, "Just now, were you talking about the brat? I mean, my disciple?" Opposite her, the two students turned pale and hurriedly bowed in apology. "We're sorry, we spoke too rashly." Jeonghwa's anger hadn't faded one bit. She shot back at them, "What do you think you know to be saying things like that about that child? Please forgive us." The two cried out in fear. Just then, before Jeonghwa could bully the kids further, a student named Kim Boseong stood up and questioned, "Doesn't the young master also know nothing? We've put in so much effort too, but every time we're treated like we're nothing. It's natural for things to be different when you grow up in different circumstances, isn't it?" Jeonghwa shook her head mockingly at his words. "Do you really not know anything? Maybe it's better that you don't. If you knew how much a single day in that child's life differs from yours, you'd realize your own lives are nothing more than child's play." Behind her, Boseong heard Jeonghwa's pitying words and grew so angry that the veins on his hands bulged. He thought to himself, "What exactly is so special about that second son? Fine, good, I'll show you all." Time passed quickly and it was soon time for a break. Instructor Young-ho's voice rang out, "That's it for today's training." The students let out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Boseong watched Chial resting nearby and sneered internally, "See, there's no difference. All that talk about struggle, it's just because he was gifted by heaven and is different from us." With that thought, a random student ran up and asked Boseong, "You said you wanted to tail that second son today, right? But is it really okay to just wander around the clan grounds like this?" Boseong nodded firmly in explanation, "We're students, so it's fine. Besides, we aren't going anywhere dangerous. That second son doesn't live in the main branch's quarters anyway. We can't just let him keep overshadowing us. Today, we're going to see it with our own eyes." Thus, time passed until evening. Boseong led a few students to wait outside Jeonghwa's research area. However, after waiting for so long, Boseong couldn't help but wonder, how long has he been in that research lab? It's already 9 p.m. Elsewhere, a few students began to yawn and suggested, "Hey Boseong, let's head back. Training all day has made me too sleepy." "I'm exhausted too, forget it. No one knows what that second son is even doing in there anyway." A few members of the group left apologetically, causing Boseong to curse under his breath. What a bunch of weaklings. Shortly after, Chial finally left the research room. Boseong quickly hid himself and followed from behind. Finally, almost time to go home. Is he going to the training field? That area is reserved for the main branch. He's not supposed to be allowed in there. Boseong wondered to himself before the group heard countless shouts of training echoing from outside. This startled the group, making them look at each other. "What's that sound? Is that the sound of training?" Then a kid in the group advised, "Boseong, it seems that youngest master is really something else. Let's stop. The young master didn't say anything wrong anyway. If we tried as hard as Inha did..." Boseong didn't let his friend finish. He clenched his fists and growled, "I never skip my personal training either. There's nothing special about this." The other two just looked at each other with bored expressions at his words. They didn't want to waste any more time stalking Chial and left immediately. "Sorry, we're heading back first." Ignoring them, Boseong was still a mess of thoughts. What's the difference between me and that second son? I will definitely prove that I'm not wrong. He waited silently again until the protagonist finished his practice and left the training field. This time, Chial went straight home without lingering anywhere else. However, before Boseong could investigate further, a beam of light appeared behind him, followed by a loud shout. "Hey, you there, stop right now." The shout startled Boseong, but once the guard saw his uniform, he said in surprise, What, a student? Even though young Master Li Qiao goes around at this hour every night, I didn't expect him to bring a student along too. This isn't allowed by the rules, so head back now. Bo Xiang nodded quickly when he realized the guard wasn't going to be difficult. Before leaving, he glanced at Qiao's villa and thought, the lights are still on. It's 2 a.m. already. This left Bo Xiang in a solemn silence. He quietly replied to the guard, "Then I wish you a smooth shift," and hurried away. Time passed until 5 a.m. the next morning at the training field specifically for Class 5. Because he had returned late the night before, Bo Xiang was still incredibly sleepy. As expected, I got back way too late yesterday. He thought tiredly before his eyes widened at the sight ahead. Qiao was already there before him. He looks truly exhausted. Even with the gifted physique and abundant mana of the main branch, can a 13-year-old really endure a life with only 3 or 4 hours of sleep? What about me? When I go home, I usually watch TV or play games to relax. I do my personal training, but I still get enough sleep, rest, and entertain myself properly. Thinking of this, Bo Xiang really couldn't suppress his curiosity. He stepped in front of Qiao and asked, "Don't you feel tired?" Opposite him, Qiao's brow furrowed tightly as he replied casually, "So you were one of the people stalking me yesterday, huh?" Hearing this, Bo Xiang was startled for a moment but then admitted it. "That's right, the young master is part of the main family, so you get support and your starting point is different, and furthermore." He rambled on, but Qiao cut him off before he could continue. "I've lived like this since I was a child. Before joining the student squad, I slept a little longer. If you don't sleep enough, of course you'll be tired." "Then why do you go to such extremes?" Bo Xiang asked. To this, Qiao didn't explain much, just calmly patted Bo Xiang on the shoulder and whispered, "You already know the answer." With that, Qiao walked away. Meanwhile, hearing those words, a sense of overwhelming shame began to rise within Bo Xiang. In a different scene, while clan leader Tishan was training, Butler Choi came to find him to report something. "Clan leader, the paperwork for the mission you assigned has been processed," he spoke while handing Tishan a set of documents. However, after Tishan checked them, his gaze showed a hint of dissatisfaction. "This isn't enough," Butler Choi hurriedly advised. "These are rank 7 and rank 8 dungeons. With the current level of the student squad, it will be very dangerous." Despite Choi's advice, Tishan remained firm in his intent. "Food and weapons can be stockpiled, but people cannot. Right now, I need to create those who can survive." Hearing this, Butler Choi stopped arguing. "I understand. I will proceed according to your instructions. Additionally, I have one more report to pass on." He began to talk about what had happened with Qiao. This brought a small gleam of joy to Tishan's eyes. "The youngest did that? That boy has had a different look in his eyes since he was little, the eyes of someone who was once stripped of everything and fell to the absolute bottom. But leading people and changing them is a completely different matter. Adjust the test content a bit. It's a coincidence that the 8th child is in the same class. Let's raise the standard for the entire student squad. I want to see if he really has the qualities to lead people. This time I will observe closely." He spoke with a face full of anticipation for the upcoming test for the children. Pity the other students. They had no idea that because of Qiao, the difficulty of the entire squad's test had been raised significantly. Back at the Class 5 training field, Instructor Jung Ho arrived and was stunned to hear the sounds of training echoing everywhere. "I lost, I surrender. Damn it, it's not over yet." He saw the students split into 2 groups. One was jogging to build physical strength while the other was sparring. This made his eyes bulge as he couldn't understand why these students were suddenly so motivated. "These kids, it's the weekend, yet they've been out here since early morning. I guess there's no need for a formal assembly then." 2 students noticed Jung Ho, stopped what they were doing and turned to greet him. "Oh, instructor, you're here." Jung Ho responded with a praising nod. "Yeah, working hard even on the weekend, I see. If anyone isn't here, go call them back. I have something to convey." The student hurriedly ran to call everyone together. Once they were all gathered, Jung Ho announced, "Although it's a bit sudden, the schedule for the first quarterly evaluation has been moved up. Therefore, the instructors have decided to grant the students 1 week of leave beforehand. Consider this your final break and rest well." In the end, he stopped mid-sentence as he looked at the bright faces of the students and thought to himself, "I guess I don't need to remind them to maintain a minimum training schedule even during their leave." Thinking that, he continued with satisfaction, "I trust you all know how hard it will be." Dismissed. the students responded in unison. Understood. Shifting to Chiol's perspective, this sudden early leave made him feel a bit suspicious. Suddenly getting leave like this and the evaluation being moved up. Is this really okay? As he thought that, he noticed the students staring at him from behind and turned around curiously. Why haven't you all left yet? Kim Han and In Ha asked for his opinion. We were looking at you, young master. What do you plan to do during this leave? Hearing this, Chiol gave them a blank stare. Leave is personal time, why are you asking me? Rest when you need to rest, I have no intention of forcing you during your break. The students' eyes widened as if they were witnessing a dinosaur coming back to life. They began whispering among themselves. I didn't expect to hear that from the young master. Honestly, I thought he'd force us into hellish training, like, is someone actually resting, then making us all train together. Of course, none of these whispers escaped his ears. Knowing how they viewed him made Chiol feel a bit awkward. Why don't you just say it louder? What do you guys think I am? Should I try doing it like that first day during this break? Rest when you need to rest. Rest is important too. I know that even if I tell you to rest, you won't just sit around doing nothing. Take care of yourselves, rest well, and I'll see you after the break. Chiol instructed them calmly, and just hearing those words made the students rejoice as if they had struck gold, shouting and cheering loudly. Shifting to Jeonhwa's research lab. After leaving the training field, Chiol rushed over here. However, his appearance didn't please her at all. She complained, I heard you got leave, yet you still come here to bother your aunt. I have a ton of research to do. Chiol immediately retorted, you're clearly just playing on your phone, looking at random things. Hearing this, Jeonhwa flared up like a cat. What do you mean, random things? I'm reading news about Hanman being recognized by the family head. Even his leukemia is cured. At this, Chiol's eyes turned dead white and he asked, wait, what on earth are you looking at? And is the quarterly evaluation really being moved up by my father's order? Chiol asked curiously, and at the mention of Tishin, Jeonhwa's face turned serious. She nodded and added, that's right, the order came directly from him. Receiving confirmation from Jeonhwa, Chiol fell into deep thought. Then this evaluation will be harsher than imagined. Right now, I'm stuck at the mana wall. To overcome it, I probably need to find the next memory of infinite. If the memory can't be read yet, it proves something is still missing. I've tried refining it to see if I can unlock the next memory, but I haven't succeeded yet. I guess I just have to keep searching for a way. As he thought that, he leaned back and by accident, he caused a pile of documents nearby to scatter everywhere. Seeing this, Jeonhwa's eyes bulged. Oh my god, what is this? Be careful. I told you we had to clean this place up. Ignoring his aunt's complaints, as Chiol was picking up the reports, he suddenly noticed a paper with images of the monsters he had encountered on Red Blue Island. A passage in the report caught his eye. It states that the decisive difference between ancient and modern martial arts lies in the target. It can be inferred that at that time, human techniques focused on fighting monsters. This made Chiol think the intended target, Demon Slash, must be the same. The original Demon Slash was an excessive technique. At that thought, an idea suddenly struck Chiol. He bolted upright, making Jeonhwa, who was eating a snack nearby, ask curiously, what's wrong, brat? Chiol replied with a very rushed expression. Aunt, I get it now, I'll explain later, I have to get to the training field right now. With that, he ran off like the wind, causing the documents in the room to fly everywhere once again. That damn brat. Jeonhwa shouted. Shifting to the training field, Chiol began to transform his ring into its longsword form and thought, alright, now let's try to imagine my opponent. Something much larger than me. A monster of a different species from humans, a giant beast. A technique that disregards the efficiency of combos, power conservation, dodging, or defense. Flashy things that have no destructive power or only serve to deceive the opponent are useless. The clear goal of Demon Slash is to slaughter monsters. As he thought this, he began to visualize the giant monster that had fought the nameless swordsman before. Then, he reenacted the Demon Slash technique exactly as that swordsman had done. His technique immediately caused an explosion within the training field, sending dust flying everywhere. By successfully reenacting this technique, a stream of black smoke began to rise from Chiol's palm, acting upon the infinite sword to read its memory. This brought a hint of anticipation to Chiol's eyes. Alright, now what will appear? He whispered to himself. The scenery changed, and upon opening his eyes again, Chiol found himself in a strange place. He looked around in all four directions and thought, where is this? Is this a training field? It looks exactly like when I first received Infinite. Why does the perspective change only when reading Infinite's memory? Thinking this, he was drawn to the sound of weapons clashing not far away. Glancing over, Chial realized who that silhouette was. That person was the one from Infinite's previous memory. The speed of those strikes is incredible. Wait a minute, what's that? Does the aura change when the weapon changes? It's not that the person's aura is changing. Infinite itself is transforming the aura. Chial thought in shock before someone's voice suddenly rang out. Interesting, did you just change methods again? Hearing this, the swordsman turned and said, "Don't go peeking at other people's training." He sounded a bit complaining. However, the newly arrived stranger ignored him and asked back, "Since you got it, have you named those techniques yet?" The swordsman replied, "Not yet. Honestly, they haven't reached the level of being called techniques." Hearing this, the stranger suggested, "Then let me name them. How about myriad transformations?" "Doesn't sound bad," the nameless swordsman replied with a nod. Then, as if discovering something, he tilted his head to one side and asked, "By the way, did you bring someone else here too?" Hearing this, the stranger said in surprise, "Me, there's no way." These words made Chial flinch slightly. Then, without any hesitation, the stranger suddenly swung his sword. However, the swordsman blocked the attack. The stranger shouted, "Planning to try a duel? Why would I bring anyone?" Shifting to Chial's perspective, taking advantage of the two of them fighting, he finally dared to poke his head out to observe the swordsman. "Those eyes and that hair color. Characteristics of the Li Main family," he whispered. Time passed quickly and the week of rest came to an end. Today, Chial's group was ushered into a vehicle to be taken to the location of the quarterly evaluation exam. Inside the car, Chial gazed out the window, lost in thought. This scenery looks no different from the future or the past. A wall separating the safe zone from the danger zone. Long ago, a massive rift appeared near the Pacific Ocean. It was called the Blue Hole, a mysterious dimension that humanity has never officially explored. And from within that place, monsters never seen before swarmed out. Humanity fought these monsters for a long time to reclaim their territory. But there are still lands that remain uncharted. These places are known as uncharted regions, or more commonly, danger zones. He spoke silently to himself. Meanwhile, perhaps out of excitement for the upcoming test, his friend Kim Han said with a smile, "Lately, people say the walls have clearly divided the RAN-GI letter 1EDBI between the safe and dangerous areas, right? The closer you get to the danger zone, the more desolate it becomes." In response, Chial began to enlighten him with knowledge gained from his past life. "But we're still inside the wall, so the level of destruction is only so much. The pioneer villages near the danger zones have a very primitive level of civilization." At this point, painful memories surfaced in Chial's mind. In his past life, he had lived there for a time to hide his identity. That period was not pleasant at all. Soon, the small vehicle began to pass through the wall. "Everyone stay alert, because from now on, the place we are entering is a dungeon that has not been fully cleared." The scenery here was truly somber and far removed from life inside the walls. A faint blue mist hung in the air all around them. "Everyone, assemble. We will establish our base here, check our necessary supplies, and then begin the exam. The escort guards are only responsible for protecting this base. So from here on out, you must manage everything yourselves. But I am not worried. I will support you as much as possible as the instructor at this base. Everyone, show me everything you've prepared until now." "Yes, sir," the entire group of students shouted with high spirit. Then Chial turned to the rest. "From now on, I will take command. However, before that, this exam will surely become more difficult because of me. This is your last chance. Anyone who wants to leave, do so now." Chial's voice was dead serious. He glanced into the distance, where the forest was choked with tangled spider webs in every direction. This made Chial a bit uneasy. That's right, anyone can see this quarterly exam isn't meant for normal students. The forest of human-faced spiders, this is a dungeon crawling with webs. Any intruder will be detected by the monsters instantly. Yet our mission is to film an adult spider in this forest. Chial pondered silently. However, in Class 5, no one was cowardly enough to leave. Inha let out a sigh and a light smile. "At this point, you can test me however you like." None of the Class 5 members just want to run or give up. Beside him, Kim Han nodded, saying, "That's right, young master. We all believe in you." As he spoke, the group looked at Chial with gazes of absolute trust. This took Chial by surprise. In his past life, he had never experienced a feeling like this before. Then, Chial broke into a smile and teased, You guys say these cheesy things so naturally, don't you? Chial's words made Boseong's face turn bright red. That's because the young master creates this kind of atmosphere. Chial continued, all right, I understand. So no one is quitting, perform a final comms check, recount the supplies, and then we enter the forest together. Yes, sir, the students shouted in unison. As for the forest of human-faced spiders, they acted like ants or bees, making them very difficult to deal with. Currently, our protagonist was leading the group. As they walked, he reminded them, I assume everyone is clear. Our task is to use the recording devices to capture the behavior of spiders that have lived in this forest for at least 10 years. Therefore, from now on, Choi In-ha will be the commander. In-ha jumped, quickly asking, wait, what do you mean by that? To answer, Chial frankly shared his plan. I will act alone. I will become the bait for the spiders. Hearing this, the group, including In-ha, was stunned. A giant question mark seemed to hang over their heads. As they yelled out in a panic, wait, what? Time passed quickly, and Chial had now separated from Class 5's formation and was acting solo. He was moving through the woods alone. After casually stabbing a giant spider to death, he scanned his surroundings, panting with exhaustion. According to his sight, countless giant spiders were staring at him with their glowing red eyes. But this was exactly what Chial expected. Finally gathered, it seems the effort of killing a few to lure them with pheromones was worth it. Human-faced spiders will carry high-nutrition prey back to the nest to feed the larvae. The simplest way to make them see me as a nutritious prey is to prove that this prey possesses terrifying power. With that thought, he transformed his sword into a longsword and performed a mana slash, instantly cleaving the spider charging at him in two. His action seemed to provoke the rest of the pack. They began to hiss and growl, then simultaneously lunged at him from all four directions. Seeing this, Chial gave a faint smile, dropped his weapon, and completely gave up resisting. Next, upon opening his eyes again, Chial found himself lying on a pile of soft silk. He wondered, is this inside a human-faced spider cocoon? If so, everything is going according to plan. My stomach is a bit uneasy from the poison, but this isn't bad. First, I must use the stealth art to erase my presence. Thinking this, he used the stealth art to shroud his body in a blue energy veil, while simultaneously transforming his weapon into a dagger. Next, using the dagger, Chial cut through all the silk threads binding him and calculated his next steps. If this is their nest, the larvae should be concentrated here. With that, he used the dagger to slice a large opening in the cocoon. Chial peered out, stunned by the sight before him. Wait, why are there so many prey cocoons? Impossible, it can't just be today's catch. They should have eaten through that pile long ago, why are they? Chial frowned, lost in thought. To find his answer, he scanned the area once more and his face went pale when he saw. Not far away, a massive cocoon suspended in the air by countless silk threads. Below it, dozens of giant spiders stood as if guarding the cocoon. Then, the cocoon began to vibrate violently, as if something inside was trying to break free. At the same time, Chial suddenly felt a vibration inside his own body, thinking, is the dark energy resonating with it? Before Chial could think further, the giant cocoon began to tear apart. From within, a massive leg reached out, followed by a hand that looked human. Finally, the creature's form was fully revealed. It was a giant spider with the lower body of an arachnid and the upper body of a seductive woman with 6 eyes on her face. This was a rank 5 monster, the human-faced spider queen. My children, are you hungry? She said. Meanwhile, upon witnessing this monster, Chial immediately held his breath and silently analyzed. A rank 5 monster in a dungeon that can use human language? No, she hasn't opened her mouth. Then, could the dark energy be reading the monster's consciousness? In front of him, perhaps sensing something, the Spider Queen suddenly attacked. She lunged forward and used a sharp leg to strike directly at Chial's cocoon, sending his body flying toward the ground. No more time to maintain the stealth art. Meanwhile, the Spider Queen glared at him with a murderous look and asked, what are you? The thing that woke me lies within you. Why does a human possess such a thing? That thing is Myelura, give it to me. She spoke while activating a skill, causing a purple sonic wave to erupt from her mouth. It was the fear skill, just like the one used by the giant turtle Chial had encountered before. Chial recognized it, but he felt no fear, the terrifying pressure that only a high-level predator can create. But unfortunately, this pressure won't work on me. He spoke silently in his mind. Thanks to the dark energy, the pressure was neutralized, causing the Spider Queen to jump in surprise and ask, you dare resist my mana. You insolent brat! Before the words were fully out, a plume of black smoke suddenly rose from the forest nearby. Immediately after, a horrific explosion occurred, blowing everything nearby to bits. Looking at the scene in the distance, the Spider Queen's face went blank. My forest. What on earth have you done? She screamed, unable to contain herself. Meanwhile, Chial gave a smile, seeing the plan unfold exactly as predicted. He explained, those are weapons called burst mana rounds. Fortunately, this wretched forest has plenty of things to burn. They simply detonate on my signal. Not far away, the group led by Kim Han contacted Chial via earpiece. It has begun. Group 1, move out, will reach their nest in 30 minutes at most. At the same time, the instructor Young Ho, watching through the monitors, hurriedly reported, this is base camp, young master. I have detected a rank 5 mana source in the nest. But before he could finish, Chial cut him off. I'm fine, make sure to support the other students first. Back in the spider den, the Spider Queen was now losing her mind. She gritted her teeth audibly and ordered her minions, my children, hurry, protect my forest. Then she turned to glare at the protagonist, growling, I will personally crush you. You arrogant brat, you think you can defeat me alone? Do you believe your comrades rushing toward my nest can actually get here? You can't do a thing to me. His response was a sneer. You're the one who's underestimating me. As he spoke, Chial enveloped his body in a golden radiance. Shifting to the group of students, while moving, Inha directed the others. Everyone, keep firing burst rounds to lure the spiders. Group 1, head straight into the nest to support the young master and clear an extraction path. Hearing this, Bo Seong, running beside him, turned to ask, wait, there's a variable in the nest and we're just acting like this? Inha replied, this is the young master's order, we follow the plan. Despite his words, Inha couldn't hide his worried face, silently praying, young master, please hold on just a little longer. Back in the spider den, the cave began to shake incessantly. Fragments of stone fell from the ceiling under the impact of the queen's attacks. However, her expression held no joy. Why? Why aren't you dead yet? Why are you still standing there? Those eyes, what exactly are you seeing? She screamed as she realized all her attacks were failing to hit Chial. All of this was thanks to the protagonist's mana eye skill. He muttered, hidden things, invisible flows of power. The eyes that can see through such things are called mana eyes. Thanks to the mana eye, I can read the flow of mana and evade fatal blows. But the power gap is too large to dodge everything completely. Chial applied a recovery potion to several wounds. Fortunately, this Spider Queen had just hatched and couldn't control her body perfectly yet. I only have one chance. Then he transformed his sword into its longsword form. Next, he began utilizing the hard Qigong technique, Thunderbolt, causing the entire blade to be shrouded in black lightning. Then, without a second of hesitation, Chial lunged forward and swung his sword, releasing a crescent-shaped blade of energy straight at the Spider Queen. Just like that, a cataclysmic explosion occurred inside the massive cave. The Spider Queen, unable to dodge in time, sustained a massive wound across her body. One of her front legs was blown clean off. But even so, this wasn't quite what the protagonist intended. Damn it, the wound is too shallow. As expected, cutting through that thick hide with just one blow is too difficult. Chial stared at the massive spider before him, which was now screaming in agony. It hurts so much. I will turn you into my subordinate, rip that thing out of you, and restore myself. Then you will endure eternal pain. With that, she raised her hands and released flashes of light. Though unsure of the skill, Chial tried his best to dodge. Unfortunately, there were simply too many silk threads. In a momentary lapse, Chial was snagged by a strand. Immediately, a voice echoed in his head, submit. Accompanying the voice, a horrific headache began to wash over him, causing Chial to scream out in agony. Seeing this, the Spider Queen laughed triumphantly. Haha, that arrogant face. Before she could finish, she suddenly coughed up a mass of blood. Juan, what is this? You. The Spider Queen stammered and tried to lunge forward, as if to attack Chial. Instead of fleeing, Chial stood his ground and muttered, you should have been more careful. Spiders and insects are naturally weak against fire. The moment he finished, a massive explosion erupted beside the Spider Queen, officially sending her to the underworld. The people who had just assisted Chial were, of course, the group of students who had just arrived. Seeing their young master safe, they let out a massive sigh of relief. Kim Han said, sorry, we were delayed clearing the path. Chial let out a sigh of his own and chided, when we get back, you're all getting special training. Kim Han turned pale at the thought of the punishment and lamented, Good grief, you can still say that even in this situation. Alright, let's get out of this nest quickly, Chial declared. Time passed and the scene shifted to the instructor's room where they were grading the team's exams. Inside the room, whispers broke out. Year 1, Team 5 is behind schedule. We received a report of their return 30 minutes ago. They didn't abandon the mission like Team 4, did they? It's understandable, it's a special rank 6 dungeon and an anomaly occurred. At that moment, Young Ho opened the door and announced, "Sorry for being late, there were many injuries so I had to get them hospitalized first. I will now report the situation." As he spoke, he pressed the remote to display images of the human face spiders on the screen. He spoke slowly. Team 5's mission was to record the movements of an adult human face spider in the forest. However, while on duty, we discovered an anomaly and proceeded to gather information first. Team 5 entered the dungeon, divided into 4 groups and planted 132 burst mana rounds. Overhearing this, a man below cut in. "Wait, hold on a second, did I hear that right? You guys used heavy firepower?" Young-ho nodded in admission. "Yes, exactly. To be specific, we used 52 rounds while engaging the monsters, making it a total of 184 rounds." Hearing this, the black-haired man could no longer contain his rage. He slammed the table and interrogated him. "Were you planning to level that entire dungeon to the ground? The original mission was simply to film the dungeon. Don't you dare tell me you blew the whole place up and called it a success." Over here, Young-ho stammered. "The mission was accurately completed." "Then where is the footage that was recorded, projected immediately?" someone else shouted. But before Young-ho could even respond, the door to the room swung open once more. The person walking in turned out to be Chial. "Sorry for being late, the equipment was damaged so it took some time to recover it, but here is the video." As he spoke, Chial handed the badge from his chest to instructor Young-ho. Behind him, Seoyeon whispered under her breath, "You lunatic, is blowing up a dungeon supposed to be normal? Also, didn't you say you didn't like being captured alive?" To this question, Chial replied, "If we wanted to film it, this was the most certain way." Not long after, Chial's footage was projected for everyone to see. After watching it, the entire group was left in a daze. The black-haired man started rubbing his face, speaking in a bewildered tone. "Unbelievable, the report matches the footage perfectly. Using bombs in a dungeon is like bringing a gas canister into a burning house. Do you honestly think this was a reasonable plan?" He spoke while keeping his eyes fixed on the protagonist. In response, Chial confidently replied, "I simply chose the option with the highest success rate. For a mission with a standard plan, would the students have actually succeeded? I would deploy every possible measure to complete a mission rather than fail or give up. The Lee clan is a place that only looks at results, that's all." These words from the protagonist made the black-haired instructor narrow his eyes and think silently. "So it wasn't an accident? It looked like a variable, but it was actually the plan." That second son had absolute faith in his strategy. The other supervisors remaining in the room turned to each other and gossiped incessantly. "The young master's plan was too radical, it can't be used as an example. It's also hard to grade. But since the mission was completed with 0 casualties, it could be called a perfect score for this evaluation. Team 5 is the only team to achieve the maximum score." Time passed quickly and the scene shifted to the clan leader's office. Currently, Butler Choi was reporting the results of the test. 32 dead, 78 seriously injured, many with minor injuries. There is a clause for identity transfer in the contract, so there are no specific issues. Hearing this, Tishin nodded, appearing unsurprised. Then he asked, "What are the support measures for the casualties in this evaluation?" Choi replied, "Covering all medical expenses for the seriously injured for those with permanent disabilities." "Continue reporting the progress, you've worked hard," Tishin said as he quickly flipped through the report to observe. Meanwhile, Butler Choi pressed a button on the remote to display a video and continued his report. "Yes, I understand. This is the data related to each dungeon reported this time." From Tishin's perspective, as he watched the footage, he remarked, "It definitely had an impact. The man-faced spider forest is naturally located in a dangerous zone." "Yes, it's on the northern edge of Gangwon province," Choi added. On the screen, it showed the moment the broodmother was ordering her spiderlings to attack the protagonist. However, the image quality was extremely poor. "It's quite short," Tishin complained. In response, Butler Choi shrugged. According to the report, the recovered video could only reach this level, however it looks like a heavily edited video. At these words, Tishin's movements suddenly paused for a moment, before he savored the tea in his hand and said with interest, He truly is an interesting child. Don't you think so? Over here, Butler Choi gave a sincere evaluation. Overcoming such grueling missions with an unyielding will is truly admirable. I just worry that perhaps he is overlooking basic tactics and strategies. His casual remark unexpectedly received agreement from Tishin. So even you think so. And the way he breaks those rules merely shows the boy's audacity. It's precisely because he understands the rules that he knows how to utilize special moves. The fact that not just the students but even the instructors followed this plan without objection is proof of the youngest's leadership ability. In fact, no information about the operation was leaked, and the plan succeeded perfectly. Don't just stop at this evaluation, raise both the frequency and the difficulty level of the overall evaluations. Yes, I will handle it as requested, Choi replied. As for Tishin, he began to have infinite expectations for his son. It seems that soon the others will start paying more attention to the youngest, he whispered. Time flew by, and several months later, the scene shifted to the specialized training field for the Class 5 students. Currently, Kim Han was speaking with tears in his eyes. Young master, you know we finished the final evaluation yesterday, right? Hearing the question, Chiol asked back blankly, that's why I gave everyone the day off yesterday, didn't I? Looking at his attitude, Kim Han could only let out a long sigh. My point is, sigh, never mind, it's nothing. Next, Instructor Jung Ho gathered everyone and announced, although this is the last evaluation of the year and I'm sure you all want to rest, don't forget there's still the promotion exam. I don't want to see anyone from my class held back, clear? In response, the entire group of students shouted in unison, yes, we understand. As for Chiol, as if remembering something, he turned to tease his subordinate. Kim Han, I noticed in the last evaluation that you seemed to run out of mana, didn't you? Today, you have to memorize all those incantations. Alright, let's start with physical training first. Just like that, the entire group of students plunged back into their training. Observing their spirit, Chiol felt a sense of satisfaction. They've grown tougher. Not just physically, but mentally too. They no longer collapse because of their shortcomings, but have learned how to compensate for them. It's been nearly a year since our student life began. Except for those forced out early on, no one has been expelled or killed. As he thought this, Instructor Jung Ho suddenly sought out Chiol. So this is where you were, young master. Hearing this, Chiol looked over in surprise and asked, what's going on? Instructor Jung Ho reminded him, the instructors have an announcement to convey regarding the promotion exam. Alright, I'll be right there. Chiol nodded and quickly ran to the assembly room. Not long after, as soon as he stepped inside the room, Seoyeon waved him over. Over here, over here. Sit down, I have something to tell you. She spoke while patting the seat next to her. Once Chiol sat down, she glanced at him and said softly, you did quite well in this last evaluation, but I heard Class 1 did exceptionally well too. Chiol's answer made Seoyeon take the chance to boast confidently. HMPH, right? Exactly. Wait, no, that's not what's important. She spoke while shaking her head repeatedly to clear her random thoughts. Before she lowered her voice and whispered, hey, starting from this promotion exam, you're going to run into some trouble. The sixth sister and seventh brother were recently called to our mother's room. After that, rumors started that the two of them have been going around meeting with the students. For Chiol, how could he not guess Lady Beek Hwayen's objective? However, Chiol didn't have a shred of worry. Instead, he gave a cold laugh. What? They're going to pull some stunts during the promotion exam. Beside him, Seoyeon saw that Chiol wasn't worried at all and repeated irritably, being eliminated is one thing, but the scary part is not knowing what tricks they'll pull. You probably don't feel anything because you're too weird to be scared of anything. Both the sixth sister and seventh brother are incredibly terrifying people, you know. Chiol crossed his arms and scolded the girl. If you're trying to warn me, you're a bit late. That kind of trouble started right after the midterm evaluation anyway. With that, Chiol rubbed his chin, assessing the current situation. Because every evaluation involves things like distributing poor equipment or intentionally omitting training content for discrimination. Recently, I even heard someone approached Boseong. Unaware of Chiol's thoughts, Seoyeon clenched her fist and asserted, I've already told the kids in my class. This time I'm going to compete with you fairly and win. I'm going to take first place so I can finally make you call me big sister. She spoke with a burning spirit, making Chiol wonder why she was so obsessed with competing with him. Why are you so obsessed with titles? Chiol whispered. Next, the instructor entered the classroom and spoke. Is everyone gathered? As of today, this year's quarterly evaluations have officially concluded. Now I will announce the content and schedule regarding this year's promotion exam. As you all know, promotion results are decided by adding the points from your performance throughout the year and the results of the promotion exam. This year's exam will be held at Gate Y7, approximately 3 km north of Kiseong City. Below, when Chial heard the location of the test, he couldn't help a flash of surprise. A gate. I guess this promotion exam would be unusual, but I didn't expect it to be held inside an otherworldly gate. At the front, the instructor continued his presentation. He held up a command token and said, "Nameplates engraved with Sung Mu will be placed inside the gate. Each student will also possess one nameplate. If yours is stolen, it will be treated as an elimination and you must leave. Other than that, there are no rules. Collect as many nameplates as possible." This promotion exam is not a simple test of combat ability. It is better described as a struggle for plunder. Returning to Chial's perspective with his sharp mind, he quickly read the true nature of this exam. So this is the game they're playing. Collecting nameplates, plundering, and survival. If your plate is stolen, you're out. The number of plates will determine the score, so the rules are simple. The so-called elimination process is actually a trap, since even if a plate is stolen, the people outside won't know what happened. Therefore, as long as you can steal someone else's plate or find hidden ones, there's no problem. On top of that, this is an individual match where even second-year students are participating. Clearly, some force has had a hand in this. The promotion exam is held inside a gate, completely isolated from the outside world. For a despised, illegitimate child, no matter what happens, no evidence will be left behind. This is an opportunity they can't miss, right? But that works both ways. Thinking this, Chial broke into a sly smile, making Seoyeon beside him look at him with an uneasy expression. Time passed and the scene shifted to an office. Inside, a girl was whistling and humming happily. Suddenly, a voice rang out, cutting her off. "What are you doing, sister?" These words came from the seventh son of the Lee clan, Lee Yi-hak. The girl replied, "Just watching my cute little brother working so hard he's about to burst." This girl was the sixth daughter of the Lee clan, Lee Seol-ah. Hearing this, Yi-hak cursed her. "You're crazy?" This made his sister complain. "Kid, do you have to talk so rudely to your older sister? Regardless, compared to you, the eighth sister is definitely cuter. Her personality and behavior are just like a rabbit's. It just makes me want to strangle her." She spoke while pulling out a dagger and licking her lips in a terrifying manner. Then, pausing for a beat, she asked Yi-hak, "By the way, what do you think?" "About what?" Yi-hak asked without taking his eyes off his laptop. "What else? It's mother's order," Seol-ah reminded him. Yi-hak responded with a long, weary sigh. "I just think it's time to get a clear grasp of the situation for once." At the front, Seol-ah started juggling her dagger and spoke her mind. "It irritates me. An illegitimate brat dares to wear the nameplate of the main family. And on top of that, he doesn't know his place and struts around everywhere. So, as his superior, I'm going to personally teach him a lesson. He's even carrying that soft-hearted eldest brother behind him. I have to teach that brat exactly where he belongs." With that, she gripped the knife and slammed it deep into the table. Just like that, time passed. The final promotion exam finally began. This was the exam for students to advance to the next year, and this time it was a struggle for badges inside a stabilized gate. Kim Han looked at the two cold-faced men in front and whispered to the protagonist, "Is this a stabilized secret realm? Why is the guard so tight?" Hearing this, Chial calmly replied, "Probably to reassure civilians, or it could be a precaution since research experiments are conducted here." As he said this, Chial's eyes narrowed slightly in suspicion. "But the number of staff is lower than I expected. Do they think I won't notice so they're acting openly like this? Or is the students' level just that low? Regardless, it doesn't matter." Thinking this, Chial turned around and reminded the group of students behind him, "Is everyone ready then?" From behind, the entire group shouted, "Of course, sir." Chial nodded. "All right, let's go." With that, Chial led the group of students quickly into the gate. Back with the Lee siblings, Seol-ah and Yi-hak. Seol-ah was happily enjoying some snacks and didn't forget to compliment them. Yi-hak, this office has so many delicious sweets. Behind her, Yi-hak focused on his work, sighed reproachfully, "Those are for guests, don't eat too much." Seol-ah shrugged with an indifferent attitude. "It's fine. Hey, no contact yet, I'm busy, yet I had to come here in person." Hearing this, Yi-hak looked up and replied, The instructor just reported that the second-year students have also entered. Hearing this information, Xiao A's face lit up with infinite excitement and anticipation. Just thinking about that illegitimate brat and that trash crawling on the ground makes me thrilled. Mother said we'd be rewarded if we did this well, right? I should write down what I want beforehand. From Yi Hak's perspective, unlike his confident sister, a sense of unease began to grow in his heart. But will everything really go smoothly, even though I believe it will follow the plan? At that moment, Yi Hak recalled the words his eldest brother Myung-young had said before. Be careful, brother, the youngest isn't someone you can deal with easily. Be careful. The eldest brother told me that when he came to see me recently. I laughed it off at the time, but those words have been lingering in the back of my head. As he thought this, Yi Hak's phone suddenly began to ring. His sister Xiao A, who was lying on the sofa, immediately bolted upright and asked, "What is it? Are they finished?" Yi Hak didn't respond. His eyes narrowed as he stared at the screen in silence. This made Xiao A bit irritated, so she snatched the phone and checked it herself. A few seconds later, her voice turned bewildered as if she couldn't believe her eyes. 21 killed, 15 retreated. The entire Class 5 of the first year survived? This is impossible. Are you telling me that they all teamed up and still couldn't defeat one illegitimate brat? As she said this, Xiao A grew so angry that she squeezed her hand, crushing the phone in her palm. As for Yi Hak, he finally understood exactly what the eldest brother's warning meant. He thought to himself, we lost, a total defeat to our youngest brother, Li Qiao. Shifting to inside the gate, two students were currently running for their lives. As they went, the brown-haired one kept cursing, damn it, damn it. He was clearly just an illegitimate brat from Class 5. In response, the black-haired one beside him cried out, "Shut up and run, if we hide in that cave, even that brat won't be able to find us." They accelerated with all their might, heading forward until they successfully hid inside a stone cave where they could finally pause to rest and look outside. "Did we lose him?" the black-haired one asked. Then, as if in response, a sword shot out from the distance with the speed of wind. It slammed deep into the ground, creating several large cracks. While the two were still in a state of confusion, Qiao suddenly appeared. He grabbed the black-haired boy's arm and twisted it behind his back, making him scream out in agony. On this side, Qiao looked at the brown-haired student with a smile and taunted, "It's me, Li Qiao. You guys were good at hiding, it took me a while to find you." Opposite him, the brown-haired boy was so terrified that he collapsed to the ground. He stuttered as he backed away. "Stay back, I said stay back. Just because you're from the main branch, do you think you own everything? Why are you torturing us?" In response, Qiao stepped forward, gripped the boy's collar and set him straight. "Someone might think I attacked you first if they heard that. If you point a sword at someone from the main family, shouldn't you be prepared to pay the price?" As he spoke, Qiao slowly raised his sword. A moment later, a blood-curdling scream echoed from inside the cave. Time passed, and currently Enha ran to meet Qiao to report the situation. "Young lord, it's finished on this side as well." Qiao nodded and replied, "Good work. Since it's done, let's move immediately. We haven't finished dealing with everyone pursuing us yet." "Yes, I will rejoin Kim Han's group right away," Enha replied. Qiao mentioned that he would be moving alone and instructed Enha, "Make sure you deal with every name on your list and continue collecting more tags." Hearing the order, Enha quickly departed, watching his silhouette disappear. Qiao stretched with a tired groan and assessed his group's situation. The most important thing in this promotion exam is the number of tags we can collect. Stealing tags from other cadets is very inefficient, which is why I came up with a hypothesis. Is it possible to find badges using the magic eye? When Qiao activated his magic eye, countless golden energy streaks appeared in his vision. One of those streaks stretched toward a cliff not far away. Seeing this, Qiao smirked, "Found it." Qiao quickly lunged up the cliff, and sure enough, he found a badge there. This brought a look of joy to Qiao's face. "This works. This is definitely worth the effort. Great. I can use this chance to train my control as well." Time passed, and currently Qiao was staring blankly at his bag filled with countless badges. "Phew, this is. I didn't expect to collect this many. No wonder the bag feels so light." As Qiao looked on, several loud explosions began to echo from the distance. But more importantly, I can't train the magic eye any further. This left him a bit disappointed. Since the exam is about to end, the battle has been constant since sunrise. Honestly, if I keep avoiding her, she'll only become more of a nuisance. Qiao let out a sigh. At that moment, Xiaoyun dropped from the sky right in front of Qiao. I finally found you. Li Qiao, her voice was filled with joy. However, looking at the protagonist's face, she asked curiously, "What is it?" Not even surprised. Qiao shrugged and said, "I knew you'd chase me down." "Then why didn't you stop?" Xiaoyun asked. "Well, I've stopped now, haven't I?" Qiao said with a smile. Xiaoyun didn't waste any more time on meaningless talk and got straight to the point. "Think you're so great? No more talk, let's duel," she spoke while tying her hair back. She reached out her hand to challenge the protagonist. "Let's fight fairly to see who's on top, deal. If I win, you have to call me Big Sister, got it?" Hearing this, Qiao seemed a bit interested and asked, "And if I win?" On the opposite side, Xiaoyun began to speak in an incredibly sweet tone. If you happen to win, I'll call you Big Brother." To Qiao, Xiaoyun's unusually sweet voice actually made the hair on his arms stand up. Instinctively, Qiao hugged himself and looked at Xiaoyun with an uneasy expression. "If you're planning to deal damage with a mental attack, it's quite effective." Her words made the swordswoman shriek in embarrassment. "Shut up, you talk too much. Bring it on, Li Qiao." With that, both of them gripped their swords and lunged at each other. The battle officially began. Time passed quickly and the promotion exam finally concluded. With the evaluation system becoming increasingly strict, this semester's exam featured not just one but two members of the direct main branch line participating at once. Thus, it had become a major topic of discussion for everyone. In a corner of the martial arts field, several nameless students were gossiping. "Of course the 8th young lady took first place, right? Even the second years participated. How could the first-year cadets possibly hold out?" Someone asked worriedly. In another corner, some people were whispering behind their hands, "You mean those people?" "Yes, that's right. The youngest illegitimate child and the first-year Class 5 cadet." Shifting to the Class 5 area, Instructor Jung Ho spoke up to congratulate the protagonist. "Congratulations, young Master Li Qiao, you have achieved the highest score." As he spoke, he handed a certificate to the protagonist. Seeing this, Qiao reached out to take it and shook his head. "Thank you, honestly I didn't think I'd actually take first place." At this point, he smiled to himself, thinking about his duel with Xiaoyun. They couldn't possibly show favoritism so blatantly. Li Xiaoyun probably did better on the exam itself, but in the end, I took all of her tags. Unaware of Qiao's internal thoughts, Jung Ho continued with his praise. "Truly composed, you have become the top scorer among the entire cadet group. That is an achievement to be proud of." Hearing this, Qiao nodded in response. "My nanny will likely be very happy. Thank you for the congratulations." With that, Qiao quickly stepped down from the training platform and the other students took the chance to congratulate him. "Congratulations, young master. Congratulations." Back at the academy, Jung Ho didn't let the momentum slip and called out the next student. "All right, next up Cadet Choi In-ha stepped forward." Hearing his name, In-ha, who had been held back for 2 consecutive years in the first-year class, hurriedly stepped to the front. "Congratulations on your promotion," Jung Ho said with a smile as he handed him his certificate. Finally, In-ha had been promoted, ranking 13th in this evaluation. Looking at the certificate in his hands, In-ha began to tremble. Thank you." His voice was thick with emotion. From behind, Qiao didn't hold back on his teasing. "Don't let it go to your head, Choi In-ha. This is a moment to be proud of, but resting on your laurels won't change a thing." Hearing the jab, In-ha let out a sigh. Yes, I get it, young master." Ignoring them, Instructor Jung Ho continued calling names. "Next, Cadet Kim Bo-seong, congratulations on your promotion." Bo-seong ranked 24th in this evaluation. "Kim Han, promoted in your very first year, that's a great effort, congratulations," Jung Ho said warmly. However, for Kim Han, as he looked at his ranking, he wasn't happy at all. He thought to himself, "An unimpressive rank, honestly I feel disappointed. Fine, this is only the beginning. I will become strong just like the young master. I have to work even harder." I decided to change myself so I wouldn't be a burden to him and so I wouldn't live a half-baked life anymore. From now on, I will not lose. This sentiment was shared by the entire group of students as they looked at Qiao's retreating back with determined gazes. From Qiao's perspective, the fact that no one in his class was held back was enough to bring a satisfied smile to his face. So it's finally over, huh? But now I don't have to worry anymore. Thinking this, Qiao turned to the group of cadets. "Everyone worked hard, all of you passed. I was actually planning to personally retrain anyone who failed. What a shame. The second year will be even more brutal. There will be plenty of people eager to tear you apart. But I believe you can handle yourselves, right?" In response, the entire group of students shouted in unison, Yes. Seeing that spirit, Chial suddenly smiled. Chial clenched his fist and shouted, "Keep it up, you guys can do it." Time passed and Chial, along with Seoyeon, were now dressed formally to meet their father, having been summoned for an unknown reason. Currently, Seoyeon's face was twisted in a pout as she thought about her loss to Chial. "Hey, I don't accept this." The response was a weary sigh from the protagonist. "What is it this time that you won't accept?" At this, Seoyeon bristled like a small cat. "If it weren't for the promotion exam, I would have been first. You played dirty. Beating me wasn't enough, you had to take my name tag too. Do you have any idea how hard I worked to gather those just to lose them to you?" "Tusk, if I had brought the moon-gazing sword then," Seoyeon pouted with deep regret. Meanwhile, Chial silently acknowledged her strength. "It's true, I thought it would be an easy win, but it ended up taking over an hour. Lee Seoyeon is stronger than I thought. She hasn't even released her sword aura or mastered her skills yet. If she's already at this level, I really don't want to imagine what comes next." Unaware of Chial's internal appraisal, Seoyeon, after venting her frustration, cleared her throat and said, "But a promise is a promise." Beside her, Chial gave her a curious look. "What are you talking about all of a sudden?" Seoyeon shrugged. "The way you address me, we made a bet, remember. Are you seriously going to bring that up now?" Before she could say another word, Chial suddenly covered her mouth. He glared at her warningly. "One more word and it's a duel to the death." Looking at Chial's fierce expression, Seoyeon muttered blankly, "Fine, is it really that unpleasant?" "Enough nonsense, let's go, we're going to be late," Chial urged, causing the female swordsman to jump. She hurried to follow. "Right, you're right, let's move." Just like that, the two of them picked up their pace, until they reached the patriarch's office. As soon as they entered, they both bowed and said, "Greetings, father." Hearing them, Tishin turned around and nodded. "Come in." Patriarch Tishin poured a cup of tea for each of his children and began to speak. "I heard you have completed your first-year cadet training. What did each of you see and feel during this time?" At the question, Seoyeon hesitated, glancing over at Chial, which made him feel tense. He thought, "What? Why are you looking at me?" From Seoyeon's perspective, seeing that Chial had no intention of answering first, she declared, "I saw the true face of the clan." Her answer made Chial choke on his tea, nearly spitting it across the room. Patriarch Tishin, looking somewhat intrigued, asked, "And what exactly is that true face you saw?" Seoyeon replied, "I know rivalry comes from competition, but things happen that I truly cannot accept. I value fairness and honesty. Whatever I achieve, I want it to come from my own sword, from my own strength." On his end, Tishin listened and nodded, relatively satisfied. "Fairness and honor, not bad." He then silently appraised his daughter. "So that's why that sword chose you. You were always reserved and shy, but the one who brought about this change must be the youngest." Thinking this, he turned his gaze to the protagonist and asked, "And now, Chial, what did you feel?" The protagonist's face turned serious. After a few seconds of thought, he spoke up. "I feel ashamed. The cadet corps is the foundation of our clan's martial artists, but the current cadet corps is rotten." Hearing this, Tishin's expression shifted slightly. He became more serious and asked, "How so?" Chial replied with a firm voice, "They didn't fight. They can be weak, they can lose, but those who give up the fight are not worthy of being part of the elite of the Lee martial arts clan. And I saw too many cadets like that. The problem lies in the competence of the instructors or perhaps their training methods." Chial spoke while recalling his experiences in Class 5. "How arrogant," Tishin said softly, though a smile played on his lips. This left both Chial and Seoyeon stunned. They wondered if they were seeing things. Unaware of their shock, Tishin advised, "It is admirable that even as students you have built your own ideological foundations. But always maintain caution. Once you fall into the quagmire of self-righteousness, it is very hard to climb out." The patriarch's words made Seoyeon's face light up, while Chial was inwardly surprised. "I didn't expect father to personally give us advice," he thought, before quickly responding, "Thank you, father, I will remember that." Tishin then moved to the main reason he had summoned them. He certainly wasn't one to just offer hollow praise. "I've heard about what you've accomplished this past year. The exams this year may differ from typical martial artist missions, but in essence they are the same. You recognized them as tests I arranged, and you performed your duties with dedication. The reason I summoned you today is to reward you for those completed missions." For Chial, this sudden reward falling from the sky made him skeptical. Father is always strict with rewards and punishments. To give a reward for this, there must be a reason. Unlike him, Seoyeon didn't overthink it. She immediately raised her hand and said, In that case, I want a set of masterpiece-grade chest armor, dragon-scale armor, father. To this, Tishin agreed, very well, I will notify the armory, you can go pick it up tomorrow. Yes, thank you, father, Seoyun replied happily. Then, Tishin turned to Chiol, and you, my son, what do you want? For his request, Chiol, having already made up his mind, said, I want permission to enter the Heavenly Station Mountain. He didn't know exactly what kind of place this mountain was. However, the moment he finished, even Patriarch Tishin and his sister couldn't hide their shock. They stared at Chiol with wide eyes. Time passed, and the scene shifted to Chiol's private room. It seemed his father had granted him permission to go to Heavenly Station Mountain, so he was currently checking his gear before setting out. Herbology encyclopedia, iron pot, even medical tools. Perfect. It looks like I've packed everything I need. Because Heavenly Station Mountain was a sacred mountain, not just herbs but spiritual elixirs flourished there. On Gyokushiodo, his medicine making was left unfinished, but this time he was going to do it right. Thinking this, Chiol couldn't help but be surprised by his father's decision. I didn't think father would actually let me go to Heavenly Station Mountain. Thanks to that, I can take the warrior's trial even sooner. The warrior's trial was the final exam for children of the Li clan to be recognized as warriors. Heavenly Station Mountain was the place they were required to visit before participating in that trial. Besides, I've always wanted to visit Heavenly Station Mountain one day. As he thought this, Chiol glanced at the black sword placed nearby. It seemed there was a connection between the mountain and that blade. Suddenly, a knock at the door broke his train of thought. He called out, "Come in." The person who entered was none other than Gawa. Stepping into the room, she said hesitantly, "Young master, you have a letter. It's an invitation from the 7th young master." This news caught Chiol by surprise. Next, he went to see his brother. Meeting Chiol again, the hypocritical Yi Hak welcomed him warmly. "Long time no see, the first time since we met during Chuseok this year, ha." Chiol replied with a smile, "So you actually remembered." Yi Hak shook his head slightly and said, "I'm not so absent-minded that I'd forget something like that." From Chiol's perspective, just looking at Yi Hak's natural demeanor was enough to raise his appraisal of the man. Truly a difficult person to deal with, chatting like brothers, pouring tea himself, even sitting so naturally. A hateful face is easier to handle than unpredictable kindness, he thought to himself. Meanwhile, after pouring the tea, Yi Hak offered, "Try it, my only hobby is the way of tea. The flavor isn't bad at all." Chiol quickly took the cup and nodded. "Thank you, brother. Do you always personally serve tea to your guests?" Yi Hak replied with a smiling face, "That depends on who the guest is. This tea is from a foreign plantation I visited 2 years ago." Chiol sipped the tea while focusing his thoughts, trying to guess why this annoying man had summoned him. The cup is full, yet he's in no hurry to talk business. This leisure doesn't suit his position at all. He knows exactly how to control the situation. This man isn't some pathetic weakling with only minor talent. Enough with the beating around the bush. At that thought, as if reading Chiol's mind, Yi Hak got straight to the point. "The reason I called you here is regarding the recent promotion exam. You know it was Seol and I who arranged it, right?" Chiol nodded slightly, admitting, "Yes, I knew." His statement didn't seem to surprise Yi Hak much. He began to explain his reasons. "What happened wasn't a decision made by me alone. Blah blah." Ignoring the excuses, our protagonist had already guessed his goal and gave a thin smile. "So that's what you want." Li Yi Hak, known for his talent in politics, management, and trade rather than martial arts, was a clever man. He was excellent at avoiding making enemies. People called him the Golden Sword. Was he implying he didn't want to be Chiol's enemy? Unaware of Chiol's thoughts, the man in glasses continued to ramble. "Regardless, I am at fault. If you wish, I will apologize." Before he could finish, the protagonist waved it off and smiled as if nothing had happened. "There's no need for that. Things like that happen in competitions all the time. I assume you're not going to say you were forced to do it because of Lady Beak Hwayan, right?" Reaching this point, Chiol's gaze sharpened. At his words, Yi Hak's tone shifted slightly. He asked, "A competition? Do you consider me your enemy?" Chiol replied bluntly, "Touching my people and openly plotting against me, that only makes you an enemy." From Yi Hak's perspective, seeing the protagonist take such a clear stance, he began to run through 1,000 schemes in his head. What should I do? Should I eliminate him now to prevent future trouble? Or, then, as if weighing future losses, Yi Hak let out a sigh of defeat and asked, What do you want me to do? Chial told him, show some sincerity, but you're not the one who suffered this time, I am. His voice was filled with confidence as if he already had Yi-Hack cornered, which made the man inwardly uncomfortable. Arrogant brat won't accept an apology but demands compensation? Still, I like that. Thinking this, he reached out and gave the protagonist a proposal. Fine, I will bring the best spiritual elixirs to the Class 5 students. I will also give you a fitting reward. Only then was Chial satisfied. He gripped the man's hand and nodded. Very well, since you've decided that, I won't mention this matter again. Yi-Hack smiled. You really are the brother who understands me best, haha. Is that so? I wouldn't be so sure about that. Chial said softly. Then just as he was about to leave the room, the man in glasses offered a piece of advice. Oh, let me give you a tip. Be careful with Cial. She really doesn't like you, unlike me. Chial didn't pay the warning any mind. That doesn't matter. Regardless, I won't be here next year. With that, Chial quickly left the room. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the crazed Cial was on the receiving end of a thunderous slap from Lady Beak Hway, who shouted, "Don't call me mother anymore, I didn't raise a failure like you." Her voice and eyes were glacial. This terrified Cial. She grabbed her mother's skirt and tried to explain. Mother, please listen, I didn't use the mission as an excuse to run away. Before she could finish, Yihong barked, silence. Accompanying the word, an intense pressure crushed down on Cial, forcing her to the floor. The reprimands continued. What you did was flee. You are a disgrace to the Li bloodline. If you were truly my child, I would never have let you do that. The lady's words made Cial tremble with agitation, her hands clenching so hard her nails marked the wooden floor. She screamed, even now can't I make up for my sin? That half-breed, can't I just deal with him now? Opposite her, Beak Hudian was completely disappointed in Cial. She began to enlighten her daughter. You really don't know anything, do you? If I could, I wouldn't have been so hard on you. That half-breed is going to Heavenly Station Mountain for a year. Even if you could make up for today's failure, even that is no longer possible. You have dragged our direct bloodline through the mud. If you ever show that pathetic face again, next time it won't just be a slap. With that, Lady Beak Hudian coldly left the room, leaving Cial screaming in despair behind her. Outside, Yi-Hack saw her exit and bowed slightly in greeting. He then peered into the room, where Cial had nearly lost her mind. That half-breed, I will do whatever it takes to bring him down. Seeing this, Yi-Hack silently shook his head. Mother is truly cruel. Doing this will only make Li Cial obsessed with revenge. But now, Li Cial or Li Chial, who will be more valuable? I'm looking forward to the future. Specifically the day that child returns in a year. Returning to Chial, he was currently in a vehicle preparing to depart for Heavenly Station Mountain. However, his expression wasn't very good, because the one taking him there was Butler Choi, the person closest to the patriarch. In the front, Butler Choi said with a smile, "Wonderful, we're going the same way, though it's only for a few days. I'll take excellent care of you, young master." Butler Choi encouraged him, "You don't need to feel pressured." Li Chial raised his head in surprise upon hearing those words. Butler Choi explained, "This is the time we go to visit our ancestors' graves before the Lunar New Year, and I also have tasks to hand over to the Mountain Keeper on Heavenly Station Mountain. I am only accompanying you because the Patriarch ordered it." Li Chial put on a happy expression. "I see, then I'll be less lonely on the way there." But in his heart he thought, a coincidence like this is truly impossible. His appearance and aura seemed ordinary, but in reality he was completely different. A core figure of the clan, holding a position more important than most elders, I cannot clearly determine the gap between myself and Butler Choi. Suddenly, Butler Choi spoke up, reflecting for a moment before opening the conversation. "I heard you will be stopping by Siangmu Mountain before entering Heavenly Station Mountain. May I ask the reason for your visit to the ancestral mountain?" Li Chial scratched his head and replied, "I intend to visit the Patriarch's grave as I am about to leave the clan. I thought paying respects to our ancestors was the proper thing to do." He told himself, "In truth, it's just a convenient excuse. I want to show them that even an illegitimate son like me would come here personally to bow before them." Butler Choi marveled, "As expected, you are truly thoughtful. Young master, many elders will view your respect for the ancestors with goodwill." Li Chial gave a social smile. "Thank you for saying so," while feeling a bit apprehensive in his heart as if the man were looking straight through his soul. Butler Choi asked again, "Young master, may I offer a few words?" Li Chial replied comfortably, "Yes, I am listening." Butler Choi began, "Do you like mountain climbing, young master?" Li Qiao replied. No, I don't think I've ever truly climbed a mountain before. Butler Choi gave a gentle smile. Haha, I understand. I personally enjoy it very much. He began to ramble through a story. Once, I climbed a mountain that was very steep and dangerous with no path at all. I had to forge my own way. If it were you, how would you climb such a mountain? Li Qiao pondered. I would climb in silence, eyes fixed straight ahead. That way, I would reach the summit quickly and accurately. Butler Choi smiled in appreciation. Indeed, then you would likely climb very fast. But it is not always like that. Sometimes you must look back or to the side to check if you are still on the right path. If you only look forward, you may lose your way and end up taking a very long route. Butler Choi mused, the higher the mountain, the truer that becomes. Only then did Li Qiao suddenly have an epiphany. Was he talking about the path of martial arts? Since my rebirth, I have been too busy accepting new things before consuming the power I've already obtained. But I never thought of it as a problem. If things continue like this, even if I have time, I will just keep chasing new things. Thinking this, Li Qiao bowed and said sincerely, thank you for your wise advice. Butler Choi waved his hand with a kind laugh. Haha, it's nothing. Just think of it as the rambling of an old man. Then Butler Choi reminded him, more importantly, it seems we have arrived. As the car stopped, he introduced, this is Siangmu Mountain. Li Qiao quickly stepped out of the car and called out Butler Choi. He asked with a concerned tone, I heard that only those with the blood of the Li clan or those with permission can pass through this gate. Butler Choi, can you enter? Butler Choi replied, I was very honored to be granted permission by the previous patriarch himself. He continued, I intend to tend to the grave of that late patriarch. Where do you plan to go, young master? Li Qiao replied, the memorial stone of the first patriarch of the clan. As Li Qiao stepped in, it felt as though he had passed through a transparent protective layer. Li Qiao thought to himself, a strange sensation, am I passing through the barrier of the ancestral mountain? He tried moving his hand, feeling as though he had just entered a whole new world. Butler Choi bowed, then I shall take my leave now. I hope you achieve what you desire, young master. Li Qiao walked ahead, thank you. He stepped firmly up each stone step, seeing the pavilion from a distance. Li Qiao thought, I've arrived, the grave of the first patriarch, the founder of the Li clan. He paid his respects to the founder. Li Qiao opened the door, looking at the solemn ancestral altar before him, and spoke aloud, even if I commit the offense of drawing a sword within the ancestral grave. As he pulled his blade, please forgive me, for I do this to fulfill what you have arranged. He then placed the sword before the altar. While pouring wine, Li Qiao thought, the Dark Knight's sword is a blade, but that is not all. A family secret was revealed by my brother before my rebirth. There are 9 seals upon the Dark Knight's sword. Li Qiao knew 4 of them, including, first, prove that you are the master of the sword. Next, prove that you carry the blood of the Li martial arts clan. Third, pass the founder's first trial, the naming ceremony. So I have unlocked 3 of the seals. Li Qiao wondered, what will the hint for the next seal be? Just then, a surge of spiritual energy appeared from a nearby mirror. Upon that mirror, the word Chinui, meaning heavenly will, appeared. Li Qiao quickly realized, this is the heavenly station mountain I remember, it is time to go there. The clan's founder had sensed the energy of heavenly station mountain and chose it as the place to train the clan's future generations. Li Qiao observed the scene before him and marveled, the mana density is so thick. I saw it on the evaluation charts, but this is the first time I've seen it in person. At that moment, Butler Choi appeared. It is a beautiful mountain, isn't it? Li Qiao agreed, yes, it feels different from Siangmu Mountain. Butler Choi offered a blessing. I hope you achieve worthy results, young master. They're being noisy again. Suddenly, another person appeared complaining, so annoying, they're being noisy again. A mountain keeper appeared behind them and the Li clan guards immediately stepped forward. Young master, Butler Choi, get back, this man is strong. Li Qiao was stunned, thinking, when did he get here? I didn't sense them at all. The mountain